Welcome back to the Spiro Avenue Show. It's been a few weeks, so I'm really rusty. I got to get like the oil can out, like the Tin Man in Wizard of Oz or something. I hope I don't fuck up today's show, man. I'm very rusty, so we'll see how it goes. We're going to get to the meat and potatoes of the show, and it's a very tasty meat and potatoes in a minute, and we'll get to that. But I would be remiss if I neglected to mention our sponsor, and they are an old sponsor who's back. Thank goodness. I can keep my lights on. You wonder why we went 3 weeks between shows? Because we didn't have any sponsors. I couldn't pay my staff. They're back, and we're back with them. It's virgilsvineyard.com is where you go for the Smuggler's Son. That's the Smuggler's Son. You'll see it on my studio table here in just a moment. It is my favorite wine. The original sponsor of the Spiro Avenue Show is back. They took pity on me. Check them out, virgilsvineyard.com, to get that bottle of Smuggler's Son. It was my favorite red wine for years before they were a sponsor. That's a true story. My closest friends all know I've been talking about this wine for a long time. And don't forget, discount code for you guys, because they love me and you. If you use the discount code SPIRO, that's SPIRO, at checkout, you get a 10% discount. This is a wine that tastes like a $200 bottle of wine. It ain't that. Get to it. Check them out, virgilsvineyard.com. Spiro is the discount code. So let's get to this. I'm excited. And I'm excited in a macabre way. I'm excited in the same way I'm excited to see people get hacked up during a really campy horror movie. So this is a macabre interest of mine, this Detroit Lions team. And it's never a happy time, really. There's very few happy moments. So the Dan Campbell era is almost here. We're on the doorstep. I don't consider it here yet. I don't consider it here until games, like actual games, are played. So to me, by my metric, it hasn't started yet, but we're on the eve of it, because nothing else matters but actual games. But we're about 2 weeks away from that opener at Ford Field, hosting the San Francisco 49ers. I am ready to double down. I'm not here to double down. I'm not double downing for the sake of double downing, but I'm going to do so anyway. I'm going to say it now. This is not going to work, and I've said it from the beginning. So let's look at this. Dan Campbell was hired back in January to coach this team. And days later, I think it was 2 days later, we have Sam, some know him as Stick Day from Woodward Sports. He's on the show. It was perfect timing. It was already on the books. They hired Dan Campbell. Here comes the biggest Lions fan I know in Detroit sports media. He's on the show, and here's what I said right after that hire back in January. This is not going to work. The people, like you and the media, the fans that are advocating for this have no evidence. It's just, give it a try. He's tough. Patricia was awful. Couldn't be any worse. Those are not ringing endorsements. They're just not. You're giving me nothing to work with. Obviously, I was not a fan. I was not on board from day one, and I stand by it. There's no evidence. There's no reason to believe this. So you call me Justin Spiro the cynic, and everyone says I'm the bad guy. I'm the curmudgeon. I'm always so negative. By the way, watch our Pistons episodes from the last couple months. Couldn't find a more happy, positive guy on the planet. But so everyone says I'm the bad guy. I'm poo-pooing this beautiful era that's about to come and fall upon us in Detroit. So back in June, let's fast forward to the summer. This is about 6 months later. We have another talented guy in studio, Nick Baumgardner from The Athletic. And I made this argument that boring coaches work. We're not going to rehash the entire take, but my take essentially was goofball coaches like Dan Campbell was showing himself to be in the early going historically don't work. So we threw up this graphic, and we were just saying, look at who actually wins in this league historically. And again, not going to go through everything, but number one, Don Shula, veteran of the Korean War. He literally went to church 7 days a week, including on game days. George Halas, number two, also a veteran, awarded the Bronze Star. Bill Belichick, look, just watch his press conferences. You don't need me to give you his resume. Tom Landry, another veteran, the third out of four names so far that was a veteran in the military. He wore a business suit and a fedora on the sideline. Serious guy, was as serious as a heart attack. And another contemporary, the second on this list, Andy Reid, a devout Mormon. I mean, he doesn't drink caffeine or alcohol. I don't know how crazy he can be. And for the most part, he's devoid of sideline emotion. So, again, this is sort of the picture of what it looks like. The highest level, and it's not all guys from the 40s and 50s. I have two contemporaries coaching right now on that list that don't fit this goofball Rex Ryan, certainly Dan Campbell profile. So that's where I stood. So the Detroit Lions somehow, after years and years and years of opportunity to fix it, to do something different, are still somehow not a serious franchise. They still have somehow not made the right pivot. I don't know how it's possible. So defenders of this rah-rah, let's go boys tone that say, oh, they love this Dan Campbell thing. They love how fun he is, how silly he is. He's showing up with a helmet to press conferences. They love it. Biting kneecaps. They're eating that up, right? They should take a look around the league. You can enjoy it. There's a lot of, I don't like Donald Trump. I didn't vote for Donald Trump either time. I thought he was kind of funny in some of his press conferences. But I'm not saying you can't enjoy it. But if you think that translates, take a look around the league, because that's not true. So I'm going to show you just a little picture. I'm going to take some examples around the league of how intelligent, mature, winning organizations behave in key moments. So we'll start with this. San Francisco 49ers, rewind, fast forward to the NFL draft. They take Trey Lance third overall. This was like kind of the first surprise on that board. So this is the reaction of San Francisco 49ers leadership when they're calling to tell Trey Lance, you're the guy, and the immediate aftermath of that. So let's start there.
What's going on?
You ready to do this thing, man?
Yes, sir.
Welcome to the 49ers, buddy.
Thank you.
So happy to add you to our family, buddy. I'm thrilled. Congratulations, man. I'm gonna pass you over Coach Shanahan, okay?
Awesome. Thank you.
What's up, man?
What's going on, Coach?
Nothing doing. You excited?
Yeah, I'm so excited, Coach.
Yeah, very exciting there. Kyle Shanahan looks like he took an Ambien before that phone call. Not a criticism, by the way. That's a mature organization. That's one of the top 5 coaching minds in the league. That's an organization that's won titles. That's how they reacted. And we're not nitpicking. Let's go to another team with multiple titles in my lifetime, the Denver Broncos. Patrick Surtain, 9th overall, stud cornerback out of Alabama. How did that phone call look in the Broncos war room? What did that look like?
Patrick,
How you doing?
this is George Payton, Denver Broncos. How you doing, man?
I'm good.
Are you excited?
Yes, sir.
Good.
I can't wait.
Can't wait to get you here. If you're half the player your dad was, we got a hell of a football player.
Yes, sir.
I was with your dad in Miami. I don't know if you knew that.
Oh, man, he told me stories. I'm so excited right now, man. I can't.
Hey, all right, we're fired up. You're the guy we wanted all along. So we're going to turn the pick right now. You celebrate. Coach Fangio's going to come over here and say a few words, but we'll talk to you after. Celebrate. Enjoy your family. We're fired up, man, okay? And tell your dad I said hello.
Yeah, man, we're fired up. Tell your dad I said hello. It's like a bus stop conversation. Not that exciting, not that riveting, right? Organization has won multiple titles. They're a mature, smart organization. We'll finish with the Ambien trip around the universe with our beloved New England Patriots, the ultimate curmudgeons in sports history, arguably. They take Mac Jones, quarterback, 15th overall, and we want to bestow upon the audience now the uproarious excitement that took place in the draft war room of the New England Patriots when they called Mac Jones and celebrated uproariously in the aftermath.
Matt, this is Barrett Najarian calling from the Patriots. Going well. Well, it's our coming up on our pick here.
Look forward to working with you on Tides up here.
Welcome to the Patriots. We're really excited. Everyone here who I've talked to about you, they tell me you're a phenomenal person.
It literally sounds like a funeral. It's like the hushed whisper of a funeral. So that's 3 organizations, a little very varying degrees of excitement, enthusiasm, but all pretty stoic at most. Little smile on John Lynch's face other than that, but as stoic as it gets. Somewhere between bus stop conversation and hushed whisper at a funeral, where everyone's very upset and sad. Those are 3 organizations that have won multiple titles. That's what it looks like. That's not what our organization looks like in Detroit. What did we look like in Detroit? What did this regime look like? Let's play that. So we draft Penei Sewell, who was, I guess, shockingly still there. I thought it was kind of expected that he might, but this is the reaction of Detroit Lions brass when they draft Penei Sewell.
Wow! There's a very exciting draft room
That's
here.
outstanding. That's outstanding.
Yeah, a little bit of a contrast there. So look, am I basing all of this on that contrast? No. But it's just one piece of evidence. And by the way, this is not an organization that deserves the benefit of the doubt on this kind of thing. They just don't. So look, I'm going to sneak this in one more time for the record, because this season's about to start. So there's someone's going to look stupid here. It's either going to be me, who said from day 1.5 that this was stupid and would not work, and this is going to be another failed experiment. I might look dumb, or it's going to be all the people that love it that bought those kneecap T-shirts. So I'm putting my foot in the sand. I'm jamming it 3 feet under. This is where I stand. I hope I'm wrong, by the way. I don't think I am. I hope I am. So I don't think this works. I think Dan Campbell's biting kneecaps thing is this generation's answer to Marty Morningweg zooming off on his Harley Davidson in the middle of practice on his second week on the job and leaving a befuddled Robert Porsche standing there wondering if the guy's coming back or not. That's this generation's that. This is the shovel is sharp. This is the bar is high. This is going to be in the lexicon of lionized coaches before the era even got started. Most of these guys, Morningweg, Marinelli, talking to people like they're in the military, they can't even get through the introductory press conference without being embarrassing. It's incredible. So I'm going to get to this. Enough from me. We have a frequent, although begrudging guest in studio. And I'm going to tell you a quick true story about him. It's going to take 20 seconds. So I'm running down the list of what we're going to talk about tonight just before we go live. And he says, wait a minute, I turned you down for that beverage before. If we're talking about all this stuff, I got to run right for the bar and fill up. And I felt bad because I was drinking alone. And Billy Joel will tell you it's bad to drink alone. It's not as fun. He grabbed his drink. He's here. Easily for me a top 5 guest. He's made every top 5 journalist list I've ever posted in the city of Detroit. He's Justin Rogers from the Detroit News, Detroit Lions beat writer. He's not a fan of me, but I love him. Justin Rogers, welcome back to the Spiro Avenue Show.
It's not that I'm not a fan of you. It's just this is probably a bottom 5 way I want to spend a free evening. It's a 40-minute drive out here. I got things to do with my life, man.
I know, but you're here.
I am for you.
I know. I love you for that.
And you're begging.
I am persistent. I'm nothing if not persistent. And you'd be surprised. People, I've had a guest that came from Grand Rapids just to be here. I had a guest fly from California just to do the show. So 40 minutes, that's I live in BFE, man. So 40 minutes, you're on the low end for my guest chart.
Was it the taxes?
Taxes?
Why do you live out here?
What?
Why do you live here?
Because my wife's family's from Rochester. It's a lovely area.
No, it's not.
Where do you live?
Ferndale.
Well, Ferndale's nice. I'm not going to knock Ferndale.
Yeah,
you're right by Royal Oak. Ferndale's nice. Okay, wonderful. So, I grew up Bloomfield Hills, as snobby as it gets, but kitty corner from Ferndale. So
seems about right.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's very fitting. Believe me, nobody ever brings up that. I've never heard that before as an insult. So, okay, you listen to the Open intently. I could tell you were rapt. This is the most interested you've ever been in anything.
You want to know what I was thinking?
What were you thinking?
Why is he putting me in a position where I have to defend the Lions? That shouldn't be what this conversation is, but it's the table you've set immediately.
That's fine.
You've put me on the defensive for an organization that doesn't really merit defending.
Well, let's get into that. So I'm going to pose it to you this way. You saw it. You listened to what I said. You obviously think I'm off base. Tell me why. What am I getting wrong here?
Well, let's start with the way you presented the video clips. You presented the phone call versus the celebration, which I think is a little disingenuous, right? What was the phone call like with Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes with Penei Sewell? It was much more calm and controlled. Was their celebration a little over the top? Was it enthusiastic? Sure. Was George Patton, did he stay in monotone mode through the celebration with 3 golf claps and then sit down and cross his hands over his lap? I don't know. I didn't watch the Denver Broncos War Room. I don't really care about it. But listen, they're not. I don't like the comparison to Morningweg because I remember it vaguely from just being around in town. But recently was speaking to a reporter that was in town covering it as a national reporter, and the whole thing was just over the top staged. The guy was getting ready to leave, and they're like, no, make sure you stay around. Marty's got something planned.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know that part of it.
The one thing I could say about Dan Campbell, yeah, he's a little over the top, but it's genuine, and there's nothing fake or pretentious about him. It's just who he is. The kneecap speech, which has gotten so much attention, was 90 seconds of a 65-minute press conference of just raw kind of emotion. And you point out all these organizations that have boring head coaches. It sounds like you're pining for the return of Jim Caldwell, and that's great. That's awesome. But there are coaches that have personality to succeed too. Bruce Arians has a ton of personality. Pete Carroll, a ton of personality. Like, I just don't believe in the NFL there's one way to do things. Is there more examples of one than the other? Sure. You know, I mean, I think you probably find that in any walk of life, but I don't think Dan Campbell's personality and over-the-top exuberance is a automatic disqualifier that's going to lead to failure. Like, I'm not ready to jump there. And yeah, I'm going to be the guy that's going to say, let's wait and see, because that's my job, right? Like, I just don't have the foresight. You know, you're not going out on a very sturdy limb, or you're going out on, I guess, maybe the sturdiest of limbs if you're going to guess that it is going to fail, because historically, everything this organization does fails. So, you know, are you going to be the one guy that's wrong this one time? Probably not. But they are trying something different. And is this different going to be right? I completely understand your skepticism. But I also have, it's just in my nature to kind of see what people are thinking and why they're going this way. And I get what they saw, the charisma, as maybe quirky and corny as it could be at sometimes, the charisma he has, I see why that carried appeal through the interview process and why they went with him in the first place.
Well, so let me address a couple of things about that. First of all, I am building my argument on several pillars, one of which is the goofiness. I could get into the fact that nobody else interviewed the guy. I could get into the fact that, but for him calling the Lions or having his agent do it on his behalf, even the Lions would not have interviewed him. So I don't know. I mean, there are 9 openings. No one wanted to even call the guy to bring him in. There's teams that interviewed 6 guys in the cycle. That's one component. I could talk about the fact that he's a rookie head coach. I don't buy the interim thing. I'm not going to get into that. I just don't buy it. You don't go through the whole training camp. You're not building the playbook, whatever. You don't build the staff. Rookie head coach, the fact that he wasn't a coordinator. There's a lot of things that I'm building it on several pillars, not just that he's a goofball. And I didn't mean to imply that he was disingenuous. I believe he's as honest as the day is long. I didn't know about morning wigs being so contrived, but it's not meant to be an apples to apples, but it looks a certain way. I draw the line with Pete Carroll. I would put Bill Parcells in there even. I think there's a difference between eccentric, does things a little different, and just kind of a clown. Where you draw that line or where anyone draws that line is up to them. I mean, that's where I drew it. I believe me, I would love if Pete Carroll were hired here, and I know he can be a little goofy and rah-rah too. But it's based on more than that. So I just don't see any evidence. Like, if your argument is they're just trying something new, that's the case. Like, oh, it's something different? Because that's the same thing Sam was saying when he was in here. It's like, it's worth a shot. I'm sorry. You're saying this behavior isn't an automatic disqualifier? I agree. Nothing's an automatic disqualifier. Anybody could win despite a huge flaw in this corner or another. But it's about bets. It's about predicting what's the best bet. And if your best bet is a guy with no experience that nobody else called, that acts like a goofball, I question the wager. It's not about, it can't work. I think it's the worst bet that they had available to them.
Yeah, there's 2 things that I think maybe play out that work in his favor. Two things I think are important with head coaches, right? Because your head coaches, CEO, or X's and O's don't matter as much, right? You're a CEO of an organization, and you could go a million different directions with eccentric CEOs, including probably the biggest cult figure out there right now, Elon Musk, right? And I don't know why I'm drawing a line to Dan Campbell and Elon Musk, but I just did.
So there's CEOs.
There's that, but it's the willingness to get people to rally behind you, and it's the people you surround yourself with. And I think Campbell has the potential to be excellent in those 2 things. I think, from what I've gathered already, players love him. Like, they adore the authenticity of the person, right? Like, he's just kind of one of the guys, but yet still carries that kind of alpha command of a room, right? And so the players like being respected. They know they've got somebody that's been through it for 10 years and know their emotions and their highs and lows of the profession that they can lean on. And then 2, I think the staff he's built is very interesting. I don't think they're all hits, and I don't want to get into judging them without a game being played. But I do think, and I will say a couple of the real potential hits. Aaron Glenn, I think if that defense has a modicum of success over the next 2 years, that guy's going to be a head coach in this league. And I'm really fascinated by a guy like Aubrey Pleasant. Just same thing, just incredibly infectious energy at, I mean, one of the premium position groups in the NFL now in the defensive backfield, right? But I think if you look throughout, and Deuce Staley too, right? I mean, that's a guy that's kind of been on the cusp in the conversation of head coaching just for a while, that brings that right mix of passion and intensity and demanding. And I look throughout the staff, and again, not all hits, but a lot of hits. He's surrounded himself with a lot of, I think, up and coming football coaches that have that X's and O's acumen that kind of compensates for the fact that he wasn't a coordinator. So if you get that leader, you get that natural charismatic leader the guys want to go to war for and fight tooth and nail through 4 quarters, and you kind of fill in some of your rough edges on the X's and O acumen with the people that you put around you. And Campbell isn't a guy that it's his way or the highway. He's not the guy that was just here. It's the opposite. He's always looking to. It's not a. He's not just saying he wants collaboration. He wants collaboration because he knows he has weaknesses, and he's filling it in. I think those are the 2 traits that he possesses that give it a chance to work.
I can't speak intelligently to the position coaches, really. The only one I know a lot about, having watching him played, and also his reputation, is Deuce Staley.
Sure.
Highly respected. So Deuce, that's fine. But I've heard this argument of, okay, Dan Campbell, he may not be an X's and O's whiz, but he doesn't have to be. The coordinators can take care of that. Okay, let's take that step down. Aaron Glenn, rookie defensive coordinator. Anthony Lynn, failed head coach 1 year as an offensive coordinator with Buffalo, and they finished middle of the pack. They were okay. It's not like they were lighting up the world. So, again, even if you're stepping down the ladder, don't worry about Dan Campbell. His coordinators will take care of it. Are they a good bet? I mean, I'm not saying Aaron Glenn's a bad bet. I'm just saying it's not like a good bet. It's a shot in the dark. Who knows? I mean, he's got a good reputation. So, it's a bad example as it played out, but when the Lions had Mike Martz here, that was, okay, I didn't like the head coach, but hey, they got Mike Martz, the architect of the biggest show on turf with the Rams.
Did that work out?
I just said it didn't work out, but I'm saying I liked the bet.
Gunther Cunningham, did that work out?
I
loved Gunther.
He was a
human being, loved Gunther Cunningham. But did it work out?
Well, yeah, it did not. I'm just saying.
Did Terrell Austin work out, at least to start?
Oh, to start it did.
Yeah. So, I mean, if he went out and got a bunch of guys that formally did it, then we'd be having this conversation. Oh, you got a bunch of failed retreads.
That's fair.
It's one or the other, right? I think with the Lions where they're at, and I think everybody but maybe the organization itself is going to call this a rebuild. It's okay to go young and up and coming and trying to build something fresh and unique and new. And I think what they're trying to do is you talk all the time. You change coaches, right? What do you do? When you fire one coach, what do you do?
You go to the boomerang. You kind of go to the
player's
coach to the dictator.
Usually it's like offense, defense, or defense, offense. And this one, it was a personality hire, right? They went from the drill sergeant, the dictator, whatever you want to call him, to the guy that has so much positive energy that he's going to throw the team on the back and carry them emotionally to the next level. And we just haven't seen it here before. I thought this was a possibility before it started, but I thought it was maybe Salah, for the same reason. He just had that exuberant energy. And I guess I didn't know a whole lot about Dan Campbell. I had put him in my, 15 candidates to watch list. It wasn't like he was completely off my radar, but even in the paragraph, and this is just I'm criticizing myself here in hindsight, right? I didn't think it was realistic because I thought maybe there was too much overlap with Patricia, based on, the old Oklahoma drill story, right? Like ran an Oklahoma drill on the first day of practice, and which has turned out to be not necessarily accurate. But like I thought, okay, do they want another hard ass in here? And yes, Dan Campbell pushes the guys, and he has hard and demanding practices, but the personality couldn't be more different. Just the top to bottom, janitor to kitchen employee to 53rd guy in the roster to superstar, treat with respect and dignity couldn't be more different than the guy that was here previously. And I think that is the appeal of him to the people that hired him.
I mean, all fair. And look, I've said he's probably the nicest guy I've seen on camera. I've never met him, but it seems like the nicest guy I've ever seen on camera at a podium for Detroit sports. I mean, I'm rooting for him. He does seem like a great guy. It's just, again, I don't trust the X's and O's, not to mention the 65-year history of this organization being inept. But I'm curious because I tried to find one. I couldn't. Like, people keep telling me that, again, with this, I'm a curmudgeon. Like, what's wrong with the guy having a little fun? I'm overreacting. Look, to me, the NFL is dog eat dog. It's rat eat rat. Doug Peterson wins a Super Bowl, has 2 winning seasons after the Super Bowl, by the way, for an organization that had never won one. Has 1 losing year and a weird COVID year, and he's gone.
Yeah.
I mean, the Patriots were trying to trade Tom Brady for like 5 years, but for Robert Kraft intervening and vetoing it, he would have been gone 4 or 5 years earlier than he was. It's Tom Brady, who's in the middle of winning Super Bowls. This is the ultimate cutthroat. I don't care what you've done. That's everybody else. It's everybody that's winning is like that. And that's the majority of the league. Can I argue that this can't work? I've never seen it work, where it's this la-di-da. Even Pete Carroll was a previous head coach, one of the winningest coaches in college football history. Like, he had some real chops and weight. And it was a prior NFL coach. Like, I've never seen this work. What's the precedent? To me, we're still basing it on nothing. Because you gave a great answer. It's, he's a great leader, he's enthusiastic, and they're trying something different. But there's 10 people that work in my building that are, like middle managers that treat their departments wonderfully. They'll go through a wall for them. I don't want them coaching the Lions. I don't want them doing a lot of jobs. They're good in that role. I think Dan Campbell would be a hell of a high school football coach. I think he'd be awesome.
So listen, they've tried just about everything, right? They tried Steve Mariucci, Super Bowl credentials.
I liked Mariucci hire.
And who I think a lot of people did. It was naturally generated excitement.
Yeah.
They've tried the hot coordinators, in different ways, different styles. Even recently, Marinelli and Schwartz were both hot coordinators, right? They tried the stoic, business-like Jim Caldwell, who, you can credit Peyton Manning all you want, but he got the job done every step of the way. And I tell people this all the time, like watching a Dan Campbell practice versus watching a Jim Caldwell practice. Jim Caldwell is the most organized human being I think I've ever seen. Like, I'm convinced he's got his day planned out to the minute a year in advance. Like, it's amazing. Like, I'm not even saying this is not a negative. Like, this is a positive. Jim Caldwell is an amazingly competent, structured human being, and it shows. His practices ran different than anything I'd ever seen in terms of raw efficiency. 2 fields going at once, like unwasted. There was no unwasted second. Like, everything was done, and they would get practice done in sometimes hour and 20 minutes. A 2-hour practice would be done hour and 20 minutes because they got all the work in. And then I watch maybe a Campbell practice, and it's a little bit more disjointed, a little bit more free flowing. It goes the full 2 hours. They're not working on 2 fields at once. Totally different world. But they tried Caldwell. It worked to a degree, but it didn't get them beyond. It got them squeaking by at the 9-7 and really kind of capping out at 9-7. Like, what was more than that? And the best team they had, Caldwell blew it by being too conservative. We've talked about this. I'm pretty sure we talked about it in the previous example. So then you go out and you get another hot new coordinator. You get Matt Patricia, businesslike. He's the guy that would never show emotion during a draft call. He'd be the super professional, never embarrass the organization guy. That didn't work. That went as far as not working. So they're just once again trying something different. And yeah, that's not the greatest argument in the world, but My counter is, who should they have hired?
Robert Saleh, because you achieve what you want for the players coach, sort of rehabilitate the locker room, which it certainly needed post Patricia. You get the benefit of that rah-rah, but you also get a guy who's been a coordinator, who has excelled as a coordinator. All the players love him. They say the same stuff about Saleh. They say all the same stuff about Saleh. He's enthusiastic. He's like the defensive coordinator Pete Carroll. Like he's the line where he's that eccentric kind of, not silly in a bad way, but a little off the wall in a good way, in my opinion. I think Campbell's on the other side of that line.
Somewhere there's a Spiro Agnew in New Jersey conducting their same show and having the same conversations and same criticisms and same concerns about.
Oh, they can't say there wasn't a coordinator criticism because that's not on the table, and that's one of the big boxes for me.
But he's unproven, you know?
Well, yeah, I know, but it's like, who's a better bet? Like, you know, a guy in single A and a guy in triple A are both unproven at the major league level. I'll take my chances on the guy coming from triple A last night from single A. It's a smaller jump. So, yeah, they're both unproven. What's the better unproven bet?
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I think I was in Saleh's camp.
I was, firmly.
From the start, right? New York Jets don't have a great hiring track record either.
I think he'll probably fail there because I think anyone would fail here or there. I mean,
right.
that's
part of it, right? Like, yeah. I mean, the franchise around you, the front office, the culture. I mean, like, you talk about installing culture, and it's really, really important. It's also really, really difficult to erase the previous culture. Everybody tries to do it. They try to just wash away the 6 decades. They have nothing to do with it. And they're right. Like, that has nothing to do with this current roster, but it's still there. It's always this undercurrent. Your fans are always talking about it. The podcast in town, the radio stations are always talking about the failures. They're expecting the next failure. And there's always just this air of negativity, whether it's intentional or not. It's just always there because that's who the Lions are, and you expect failure.
Oh, and it's funny because that does remind me of Jim Caldwell, which I'm sure you were probably present that day when he said, well, you guys are so negative. It's like, talk about victim blaming.
Dungeon of Doom.
But I've heard that's right. I've heard 97.1 callers call in, and not the best example for the brightest, the finest and brightest in town. But 97.1 callers will call in and, oh, yeah, if you guys wouldn't say so many bad things about, Stafford or Caldwell, the players would want to come here. It's like, it's incumbent upon me to make sure the Lions are good. Like, it's just that I hate that stuff. Jim Caldwell, I mean, a caller in Novi is one thing, but like for the head coach of the Lions to chide you, wasn't it you? Was it not you that asked the question that pissed him? I can't remember.
No, I think the funny thing was, and I'm not 100% sure on this, but I think Wojo asked the question. Oh, God, so I want you to just wrap it around. Like, Wojo is not the most aggressive question asker. I don't know why. I don't think Jim Caldwell liked Wojo. I just always got that vibe.
I don't know. But either way, the idea that like the Detroit media and Detroit town is like unfairly treating this organization, I think they've had it too nice, frankly. Could you imagine this history? The Jets, I mean, at least the Jets have like done something. They've won a Super Bowl in their history. They've been on the doorstep of 2 Super Bowls in the last 15 years. I mean, they made the Final Four, if you will, with Mark Sanchez. I'm not saying they're the bee's knees, but like this false equivalency people throw out. Oh, yeah, terrible organizations like the Lions and the Jets. It's like, no. That line is in highlighter green. There's no like blurring that. Those are 2 completely different organizations. The Jets are terrible. They've got something to stand on. I mean, they have a Super Bowl trophy in their trophy case. So the Lions are so bad. I want to finish with Campbell here, and then we'll transition out of this. You mentioned that he's got the locker room. I could have told you he'd probably have the locker room after 5 minutes of hearing his introductory press conference.
Sure.
I believe that. I believe you. I'd be shocked if it were the contrary. Doesn't that only last until, let's say, week 4 of year 2, if they're 1-3 and he blows an end of game scenario, forgets to call a timeout or wastes a timeout or does something stupid like the time that Peyton Manning looked befuddled when Jim Caldwell ridiculously botched the game at the end of his Colts career. Like, Okay, great. I'm glad they like him. That'll carry him through the entire first year unless it gets like really bad, toxic. But that doesn't really matter, right? In the long term, they have to win. It doesn't matter, right?
Those things have to overlap. It does matter, but so does winning, right? Like you can't. It's tough to be a dick all the time, even when you're winning, right? Like it grows thin. Maybe Larry Brown is a great example. Like even Larry Brown won here all the time, but it wore thin with the star players at some point. But if you're a great players coach, like you may have their friendship's not the right word, but they may like you, right? But if you're not winning, like yeah, you're at some point the respect's going to go out the window. Like you've got to win too. I don't know what the leash is. I don't know if it's game 4, week 2. I know players don't have the mentality that this is going to go horrible this year, but it's probably going to go horrible this year. And maybe by design is a little bit too harsh, but like you just have a roster that's not set up to be particularly competitive. It's supposed to turn around with those 2022 and 2023 double first rounders where you could start really building the pieces toward the future. I think Lions fans' best hope right now is, 5 or 6 wins this year where they fight, they're competitive, they're a feisty team. I've made this comparison on a few different stops, but like the 2019 Dolphins is the comparison for me, right? That's a team that gave up before the season started. They traded everyone away. It was tank for Tua. It was blatantly obvious that they just had no interest in competing. The Lions have not done that. I mean, they haven't gone to that bottom of the well. But that Dolphins team, I believe 5-11. I'm not 6-10, somewhere in that ballpark. But they fought. They were competitive. They beat the Patriots in week 17. They were playing hard for their coach. They ended up getting Tua anyway in a weird, turn of events. But 10-6 last year. Like, right, that team is on the right trajectory. They have a ton of draft assets, that they started using last year that they built up through their tank. And so to me, when I look at this Lions team, that's kind of what you hope it looks like, right? Like they fight, they're competitive, they maybe win a couple games that they shouldn't have. I don't know if it's 4-13 or 5-12. I'm still working on the 17 math in my head, but
it's going to take me 10
it's going to
years.
take a while. But if you see, God, I hate that when you use this word, but you see the grit, you see the passion, you see the fight, you see it for 4 quarters through all 17 weeks of the season, and they win 5 or 6 games, you go, okay, like this culturally is looking right. Now they got to start hitting on the player acquisition. So I don't think we're going to be judging this team until really 2022. Like the end of 2022 is where we're going to look at it and go, does Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes have this thing on the right track, or are we going to be prepared to be going through this whole stupid thing again at the end of the 2023 season? Because that's what we do in this town. Justin can't have a summer off or a spring off 3 years in a row. It's just not allowed.
Well, this town has proven in very recent memory that they will embrace exactly what you're talking about. It took, 2 1/3 appearances of you on the show for us to agree on something, but I'm with you. They do not care about the record, the fans, this year. I don't think.
They shouldn't.
I certainly don't.
Except for the guy that told me they were going to be in the NFC Championship on Twitter today.
Well,
that guy.
The opiate addiction problem out there is a major issue, and I hope the guy gets help. But look, here's the thing. The Detroit Pistons had the worst record in the NBA. They were horrible. And it wasn't just, people were excited about the pick. They were excited about how they looked in those losses. Young guys, scrapping, competing. They'd be up 6 on the Nets with 6 minutes left, and then they'd lose.
Great comparison.
Thank you. So, but the fans loved it. Yeah. I mean, so they're the worst team in the league. And
here's the difference, though.
Yeah.
Blake Griffin is Jared Goff, right?
Oh, we're getting the Goff next, actually.
Well,
so we can get into that.
Yeah, the Pistons were looking to cut ties with the lingering,
the vestige,
the legacy piece, right? Not just the star player that was not helping them go anywhere. The big contract, I don't know. We'll see where Goff works, but to me, it's just a waste.
Well, let's transition to golf
Sure,
because
let's go to golf.
that's the perfect segue. So
Yeah.
I saw your appearance this week on Woodward Sports Network, and you're
Cool.
Yeah, anything you do, I try to check out.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, I'm a religious fan of your content. You know that. When you make my top 5 list,
Top 5.
I say nice things about all my guests because like I don't invite people on unless I think they're pretty good. But yeah, you've made every top 5 list I've ever done. But I listened to what you said, and I want to expand on it because you kind of touched on it, and then it's not your fault. You're just the guest. They were kind of like on to the next thing. I'm like, whoa, back up. Now we're a longer format than them, but you implied that, and correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't even remember what I said, so let's go.
Well, okay. You implied that Goff has been unimpressive throughout training camp. And this is a paraphrase, but you said something like, oh, based on what I've been seeing, like, I don't know how this is going to work. So, and then it was just kind of, if I were the host, I'd be like, well, what'd you see? They didn't ask that, so I'm going to ask you now. You have not been impressed. And one more thing before I get it to you. I had Nick Baumgartner on here in June.
I know that guy.
A great guy.
Hey, Nick.
Nick's awesome.
See, Nick's at home watching CM Punk, and I'm here with you.
I think you're the winner in that.
Disagree.
I think you win that. I don't know. CM Punk was like a boxing match. What is that? Isn't he a wrestler?
Just move on.
Okay.
On to the next topic.
So Nick Baumgartner was in here in June. And he said, okay, it was very early in the process, but I asked him, like, what's sort of the vibe with Jared Goff in these early practices in training camp? And he had said, like, it's not there yet. He essentially, this is close to a verbatim quote, implied that Goff was, like, blending in with the ball boys. Like, you would never know. Here's this, like, Super Bowl $35 million quarterback. Like, but he, Nick did say, like, look, they're like 5 practices in or whatever. Like I'm not going to judge the whole thing, but like this was not a guy coming in day one. This is my team. I'm taking over. Like, can you expand a little bit on what you mentioned this week on Woodward Sports Network? You haven't been impressed. He seems to be Nick's thing. He seems to be blending in with everybody else. Like, is this his team? Why have you been underwhelmed?
I might bounce around a lot here.
So
if you gotta reel me in, then do so. But within that quote, I believe I said, similar to Nick. Nick was at 5 practices. We're at like 25, 30 now. But like I said, look at new offense, new quarterback, new receivers, new scheme. The pieces have been in and out of the lineup. I mean, Hawkinson's been out for 2 weeks. Swift's been out for the duration of his time as a Lion, it feels like. Tyrell Williams is currently out. Perriman was out. Those were supposed to be the top 2 receivers. Like, Jared Goff's like throwing to guys like Victor Bolden and Sage Surratt. Like, I don't, and I tried to ask Anthony Lynn this today. Like, not a good answer from him, by the way. Kind of boring. I don't really know much about the offense, I feel like, because I haven't seen all the pieces there. And I know that's the NFL. Like, it's got to be next man up. But it's been kind of ridiculous, this training camp, right? So I'm willing to couch any criticism of Jared Goff within the confines of that. Like, he just hasn't had the full setup or even most of the setup, most of these practices. But, I mean, how much have you read about the deep ball, right? Like, that's a big, buzzy topic, but it's a topic for a reason, right? Like, he's been Johnny Checkdown in practices, and that's, maybe it's partly because I'm so used to seeing gunslinger Stafford out there, like, just whipping it around like it's a playground and doing so successfully for years. I mean, say what you want about Matthew Stafford, but the arm talent is elite, right? And he didn't hesitate to use that all the time on the practice field. Jared Goff's the opposite. He's kept it conservative. He's very hesitant to take those deep shots. He won't force it into a window that is even remotely tight. And this isn't even just the practice field. I mean, I went back and did a film study on this guy. Like, he prefers to throw to very open receivers, not just, like, I know the NFL, their advanced stats, like, they track, like, the amount of separation a guy will throw to. Stafford's like, oh, you got a half a yard, Kenny Galladay? Boom, here you go. I'll just wedge it right in that window and we'll worry about what happens later. Like, Goff needs 4 yards. Like, he needs 4 yards of separation before he's going to chuck that ball. And I was actually talking to Nick the other day, and I go, what do you think the over-under is of Goff pass attempts, and this is very specific, between the numbers, right? So center of the field, that travel 30 yards in the air beyond the line of scrimmage this year. How many completions does he have doing that? I go, I'm going to set the over-under at 1.5. This guy is not testing the middle of the field. He's just not. It's not in his football character. And so I look at this offense. I try to see what other people see, right? Like, why did you do this? I try to put myself in their shoes. They signed Tyrell Williams. They signed Breshad Perriman. You think immediately that's the starting tandem. What's unique about those guys? They're fast as hell. Like, elite speed. Like, top 10 percentile. Number 3 and number 4, I believe, in yards per reception in the last 5 years. So what are you doing? You're getting field extenders on the outside, and then you're taking advantage underneath with your TJ Hawkinson, your DeAndre Swift, your Jamal Williams, your Amon-Ra St. Brown. The problem is, I don't know if you have a quarterback that's willing to even threaten to use those guys on the outside. Therefore, defenses aren't worried about it. And you see the cornerbacks getting more and more feisty and aggressive and jumping his little short routes, his little hitches and comebacks. Hawkins is going to catch 1 million balls this year. I mean, that's the one guy where there's clear, obvious chemistry. But again, talking to just my colleagues today as we're watching practice, I said, at some point, teams are, and probably at some point it's going to be week 1, like teams are going to start doubling this. They're gonna have subtle brackets or, a check for a linebacker or a safety to kind of just watch the quick read to Hawkinson. And not even 10 minutes later, Will Harris drops a little back into a slant route and just Goff throws it right to him. Like, right, I can't believe Will Harris dropped it. That's another story. But
now the Lions might drop him pretty soon.
He's going to start, but easiest interception imaginable, right? Like, and you look at Goff's film, one, he doesn't attack the field deep consistently. There's one route he'll throw a corner. He'll attack the sidelines deep. That turkey hole shot, right? Like, that's his comfort zone. But he won't attack the middle of the field, and so defenses can plan for that. And then he's good for one awful decision a game, at least one awful decision a game. It's why he has, I believe, 29 interceptions over the last 2 years. Consistently shows up on film and has consistently showed up on the practice field. Again, new scheme, new players, new chemistry being built. He's trying to bring those guys out to California and build it in these workout settings, but this is an audition year for him. He's got 1 year to prove he's the guy. I think maybe the leash is a little bit longer because of the relationship with Brad Holmes. It's 1 year to prove he's not a bridge quarterback. And they're getting real close to the regular season. They didn't play him in preseason 2 and preseason 3, which bad decision in my opinion. Just my opinion. I play that guy.
Okay, yeah, let's not to cut in, but I want to hit on that really quick.
Yeah.
Because what are they doing? So Ben Roethlisberger, who's like 73 years old, in that
72.
72. Okay, yeah. Sorry, I don't want to age him up. He's 73, 72, whatever he is. He's been there forever in Pittsburgh. He's been with that coach forever. He's been with that staff and some of those position guys forever.
Yep.
He didn't play the whole game, but he threw the ball 10, 12 times.
3 series.
Yeah, I mean, Jared Goff it's a new team.
Yep.
New city, new coach, new receivers, new everything.
Mm-hmm.
Everything but the guy's haircut has changed since the trade and since he came from out west. Why is Jared Goff doing Pilates on the sideline and Ben Roethlisberger is getting wheeled out on his wheelchair and propped up and held up to throw the ball 10 times? I mean, unless you always throw out the caveat, maybe there's some nagging thing, like maybe. I mean, there's always some explanation that we may not know. But it doesn't seem like that. You've seen him in practice. He's not limping around. Like, if anybody should be the outlier and play an abnormal amount of snaps for a QB1 ever in the history of football, it would be Jared Goff. They're going the other way. So I'm glad I think you mentioned that actually this week on your appearance too, but I was saying the same thing. I'm like, is the guy hurt? That gets back to, by the way, genius Dan Campbell. That's the kind of stuff you can say, oh, it's preseason. dumb is dumb, and I don't care what day of the week it is or what it says on the calendar. A dumb decision's a dumb decision. Unless there was some extenuating circumstance that we're not aware of, and we always throw that asterisk out there, that was a dumb decision. This guy needs more reps, not fewer.
Man, you just full on hyperbole through that whole thing. I liked it.
What did I? Well, okay, the wheelchair was not literal, but other than that,
Wheelchair, Pilates, dumb. I mean, it's all of it. Listen, like, we're just different personalities, right? Like, I'm not going to call it dumb. I disagree with the decision, right? Like, I think that's where we agree. I disagree with the decision. The Lions seemed very content to see Jared Goff go 3 and out in a horrific drive where he was sacked and nearly threw an interception on his first pass, and then have, in the most affirming reports of training camp ever, an 18-play drive that ends in a field goal. Like, if anything sums up what I've seen from Jared Goff and the Lions offense during training camp, an 18-play drive ending in a field goal is perfect.
Iowa football was loving that drive.
Oh, it was miserable. But that's, like, the Lions are like, cool, we've seen enough. And I was like, no. And so the one thing I would say is I wonder, with the lack of pieces, without the Hawkinson and the Swift, and maybe wanting to protect Decker and Ragnow, 2 guys that legitimately merit putting in bubble wrap because they're in that Roethlisberger camp. They've done it. They've proven it. You don't need to see more of Frank Ragnow. Like, maybe that's the logic. Like, why are we going to put Goff out here with Victor Bolden and Craig Reynolds, who signed to the squad 3 days ago? Like, what are we going to gain from seeing him in those situations? So maybe we'll just try to simulate it on the practice field. And they are. They're trying to simulate it on the practice field with their number one defense, and that's good. That's always valuable to do ones versus ones. Some coaches don't. Lions do a lot of it. But I think it's always better to see a game situation, even if it's the Steelers second team. It wasn't the Steelers second team defense. They were running out most of their guys outside of Watt. But, like, just see it. Give him some more reps in the scheme. So we're not going to see it this week. I mean, we're going to see another David Blau, Tim Boyle show, and whatever. I'm there to cover preseason football, and we'll get through the finish line. And
last week was egregious not doing it, but I like I said, I would even I never advocate for this. I'm acknowledging this as a major exception, but I would play him this week, especially since he didn't play last week. I'm not saying play him the whole game, but a couple series. This guy needs reps more than anybody. We'll finish with Goff here. Just your sense. I was kind of a defender of Goff. It seems from what you're saying, it's kind of the worst of both worlds because the benefit, like I remember David Garrard for the Jaguars had a year, it was like 20 touchdowns, 4 picks, and people liked him, but it's like the guy didn't really go downfield. He played it very safe. Yeah. Like, if you're going to turn the ball over a lot, I need you to be Jameis Winston, who's also like throwing bombs all over the place, and it's like you take the good with the bad. If you're going to throw a lot of interceptions and not throw deep, like, what are we doing here? That's problematic. I still think, look, different scenario, much better scenario with the Rams, but he was still in a good scenario and failed. Like, is he like a guy capable of more that just has got the yips and had just lost his confidence when McVay bailed on him? Or was this always smoke and mirrors and now, like, this is just the guy?
No, it's probably somewhere in between that, right? Like, I don't think he had the yips. I think he was a Pro Bowl game manager, right? He had good receivers around him, good line, great running game.
Yeah.
And that matters for some guys. For a guy that's a game manager, when you have defenses committing to stopping your running game, Todd Gurley was MVP caliber. I don't know if he finished second, third in the MVP race. Like,
he was best in the league that year.
Yeah, I don't yards per scrimmage were over 2,000, I believe. Like, very, very good. Then you set up a play action game, and play action can be a quarterback's best friend. Matthew Stafford was excellent in play action, which is funny because they never even had a threat of a run game. But Matthew Stafford faking like he was going to hand it off, it helped. It helped. The difference in just practice field, watching Matthew Stafford and Jared Goff, it feels like a massive gulf in talent. Like, I heard it from years from other coaches, right? Like, Stafford can make all the throws. Oh, this is immense talent. And Okay, he didn't get it done here. I have zero problem with the Lions trading him. I think it was the best for both parties. I really do. I, again, put myself in their shoes. I see why the Lions were tempted to say, 2 first-round picks and a third-round pick. Perfect. Oh, and we got to take back Jared Goff? That ain't bad. Like a former number 1 pick that we know and like can help us not go 1-16. Like, okay. But like, man, he just doesn't compare to Stafford. Just doesn't in terms of arm talent or decision making or confidence or command of the offense. Like, it's just not comparable. And I hate to be a Debbie Downer. I mean, you might enjoy the role, but I don't like being it. Like, right? I would be very surprised if the Lions are not a bottom 5 offense in the NFL this year.
Oh, yeah, stunned. I think they're going to be dead last. Who's worse? I mean, who's worse?
I'm not. It's tough for me to pay attention to 32 teams. It's hard enough to pay attention to one.
You're throwing out like the backup line coach, like so you're such a savant.
I'm in the force.
Yeah. So let's transition to this. Jeff Okudah concerns. Okay, I've banged this drum for a long time. Now, I said I thought the guy would be good,
sure,
but I thought it was ridiculous that they took him. So I'll put my Debbie Downer hat back on.
Let's go.
You took this sombrero from me for a minute. I'm going to take my sombrero back. So this is something I threw out a while ago on Twitter with my massive Twitter following that I have.
How many is it? You know the exact number, don't you?
I don't.
You looked this morning. You're a liar.
Yeah, some of them are from Pakistan. I don't know why that's a draw. I don't know.
That's where they come from when you pay for them.
See, I've been accused of paying for them. Never done it. I have paid for advertising and promoted tweets, though, but never pay. I don't even know how to pay for followers. But anyway, I digress. I've talked about it. Jeff Okudah. I made this comparison, and it's going to make some people upset, and you're going to tell me I'm overreacting. I'm not saying he's this guy, but I'm just asking. What's the Alex Jones, Eric Cartman thing? I'm just asking questions. Here's the picture.
No.
Okay. Are you telling me? Did I make these numbers up? Did I tell Ben, hey, make these stats up so I can make Justin Rogers upset on my show tonight? No. These are the facts, and some people just listen and don't watch, so they don't know what we're talking about yet. Pro Football Focus. I always say it's not the end all be all, but it's very good. I mean, they never have like Tom Brady as the 37th best quarterback in the league, and Nick Foles is the best. Like it tracks with sort of common sense. Typically, it's a good metric. Tease Tabor was so bad in 2018 that they got rid of him 2 years after drafting him in the second round. His Pro Football Focus score that year, 2018, right before getting cut and obliterated out of the league forever, was 29.9. Now, that's basically getting like a 35% on your science exam in high school. 29.9. Jeff Okudah last year, 32.2. Of all the cornerbacks with their coverage score with Pro Football Focus, 2018 Tease Tabor was 118 out of 120 eligible corners in coverage score. Jeff Okudah last year, 115 out of 121. So you're talking about both, and by the way, the other guys around them on that list, like right behind them, were like 7th round picks forced into action because 3 guys got hurt. There weren't any other 1st and 2nd round picks on that list. So I'm not saying he is Tease Tabor, but I bring that comparison in just to paint the picture of how bad last year was. So let's clarify that. I'm not saying he's Tease Tabor.
All right, really quick. Does Ben have access to PFF in there?
No, I doubt it. I can pull it up on my computer because I have the account.
Pull up Darius. Pull up Darius Slay's first year.
You're gonna have to have an account though, because it's like
it's
I can
$200 thing.
I can pull it up.
All right,
so I'm pulling up Slay's first year.
Slay's first year. I don't know what year it was. 2015, 16. I don't know. Listen, here's where I can say we can even have the conversation of Okudah and Tabor being in the same conversation. The expectation for draft slot versus ultimate performance, right? Tabor was always bad, but he was a second rounder. He should have been bad, but there were hints and signs and people always saying like, why? Like the speed is the number one thing, right? Like, why would you even do it? The red flags were there. Okudah didn't have those flags. Like, I talked to people before the draft, including one who scouted Ohio State. So we're talking a Midwest scout for an NFL team who said, not only would I be comfortable taking Jeff Okudah at number 3, in my meeting with my team, I said I would be okay with taking him as the number 1 overall player in the draft. I don't agree. I wouldn't take a defensive back number 1 overall. But to hear an NFL scout for, I'll go as far as say, a successful NFL franchise, somebody you would have thrown up on there on that screen, having a very calm, robotic conversation with a draft pick, said Okudah had everything. He also scouted Chase Young, obviously, and he said Okudah to him was the safer pick than Chase Young. Again, I'm going to take the defensive end if I'm running a draft, but I'm not. I'm a reporter. So Jeff Okudah had a bad rookie year. Let's take the factors into account. 1, most cornerbacks struggle rookie year. Let's not judge a guy in his rookie year. 2, not a normal rookie year. Whole offseason was virtual. He didn't even get a rep on the practice field until training camp, and then missed half of training camp with an injury, missed the first 2 games with an injury, and then he has what, basically is the equivalent to a sports hernia, and, can't turn and run the way that he should. Got a coaching staff that maybe isn't the best in terms of supporting him and making him feel better. There's immense amount of pressure because he's drafted as the guy that is the job saver at number 3. He's supposed to come in here and save the coaches and GM's job. Like, it just was a combination of just a shitstorm for Jeff Okudah as a rookie, and didn't go well. Also, who was Jeff Okudah covering as a rookie versus T-State? T-State was rolling out there covering second and third wide receivers. Okudah's out there covering Julio Jones and Devontae Adams and
covering what was put the
DeAndre
covering
Hopkins.
very, very lightly because there wasn't a whole lot of coverage taking place.
You're talking about the best of the best of the best that the NFL has to offer, and he absolutely got his ass kicked. But in reality, that's probably a good thing for him, right? He's now seen the best this league has offered. You got those Slay stats you ready to show?
Oh, I had a couple stats I pulled up since you gave me some time.
Yeah.
First of all, I'll get to Slay in 5 seconds.
Junk as a rookie.
You talk about, rookie, COVID, no training camp, play the world's smallest violin. C.J. Henderson, the next cornerback drafted in Okudah's draft. Not saying he was great, but his coverage score, 58.3, which is like double Okudah's.
Yeah.
It's basically...
And now he's apparently on the trade block. It's like they're already done with him.
Okay, but this is just the context of how bad it was. Like, a 58.3 is like a C. It's not a good score, but it's like you're probably the 45th best in the league.
It might actually be like a D.
A D plus.
Okay.
I'm grading on a curve. Like he's maybe like the 55th best. Middle of the pack to slightly beyond the
Hit
median.
me with the sleigh.
Oh, well, I'm just saying that's double Okudah. That's another rookie with COVID. What was poor Okudah?
Who was he covering? Was he the number 1 corner in their system?
I honestly don't know.
There are
Ramsey, and then
that's maybe the flaw of PFF is there's no comparative measure. It's not
that's
like
fair.
DVOA or whatever.
Okay, but it's objectively like one of the worst years ever, and it
was not good.
And this is for a third overall pick, and not just third overall pick. They haven't seen a third overall pick at that position since Sean Springs.
Sure.
Sean Springs in 1997, who, by the way, had a really good career and made all-pro teams. So, you said Darius Slay.
Yep.
It was your point in bringing him up that, Slay was terrible. First of all, Slay was a second-round pick.
Yep.
So the
number 2 corner, playing behind Chris Houston.
Okay.
So he's seeing the number 2 receivers, and he still got benched for a 48-year-old Rasheed Mathis.
Okay. The 36th overall pick and the 3rd overall pick for the first time at that position.
Well, you got Tease Tabor, so I want to get...
Bill Clinton hadn't even been impeached yet when Sean Springs was drafted at that spot. I mean, just...
Give me the Slay numbers.
Okay.
Stop going around in circles.
Slay, okay. What was Okudah? Can you throw that graphic back up? And what was Okudah? 32-something, his coverage score? Darius Slay, who was your silver bullet example of how wrong I am about how bad Okudah was. Okay, 32.2.
Yeah.
Second round pick, Darius Slay, this is 2013, his rookie year, 53.6. 53.6? That's over 20 points better than Okudah.
Covering the number 2 wide receiver on a team. It's different. It's different. What's the difference between covering Calvin Johnson and Nate Burleson?
What did Okudah have to do for you to be like, oh man, I do have some concerns. Like,
No,
pass out on the field from
it
heat
was
exhaustion?
an awful rookie season. But I immediately, when you draft a cornerback in the first round, it's the same way you expect Dan Campbell to fail, right? I expect a rookie cornerback to struggle in his first season. It is 90% likely. Is there guys that succeed? Is there Denzel Wards of the world? There are. But more often than not, they fail. And I gave you the other factors I think came into it. So where I'm really turning AI to Okudah is this year. I need to see it now. I need to see that Slay jump from year one to year two. Because Darius Slay was damn good in year two.
Yes, he was.
Damn good. Like, yeah, he went and moved in with Rod Woodson and drank whatever Rod Woodson drinks, probably those pomegranate juices, because I assume that's what everybody drinks that gets really good at things. And
he jumped to 68.5, so he made for a second-year guy, it's a huge jump.
Yeah.
He got
And not only that,
30% better.
He went from the number 2 corner to the number 1 corner on that team.
Yeah.
So he made that jump with seeing a greater level of competition. Jeff Okudah's the number 1 corner on this team now. He's the number 1 guy. He has to be better. He also had no pass rush last year. That's another factor I didn't mention. Just nothing. A guy can only cover a guy so long. That 2013 Lions defense was the best.
What?
Do we not agree? Was the best Lions defense we've ever seen. Number 2 in the NFL. And Darius Slay still was awful as a
There
rookie.
was a PFF article that argued at the time, now this was at the time, there have been defenses subsequent.
We're way off tangent.
But at the time, that defense was like one of the 10 best ever.
It was
it's
the best I've ever seen.
It was loaded.
Like, it was incredible. It was the best I had seen outside of like Baltimore's Super Bowl run. Like to watch it that close and to see it dominance was amazing. Slay sucked. Slay sucked as a rookie. So I'm watching Jeff Okudah now, right? And we'll get to the preseason game in a minute. The dude looks like a different player on the practice field. It's the practice field. It's not games. Preseason games aren't regular season games. There's a ton he has to prove, but you could even see it just in the way he moves, the way he looks. The confidence level is so much higher. He looked like a deer in headlights as a rookie. He was overwhelmed. It's not surprising. You go from a scheme at Ohio State where your job is, as Aubrey Pleasant put it, there's your man, go shut him down. Now suddenly you've got communications, checks, route concepts working off each other. He got his ass kicked. He sucked. There's no other way to put it. Like, he didn't adjust well enough. Bob Quinn lost his job because of it. Matt Patricia lost his job because of it. I don't know who else you draft instead in that situation. Now, we've talked about the Herbert and Tua conversation. It was never happening. Maybe Derek Brown was the alternative. They went with the cornerback or the defensive tackle. We're probably having the same conversation because of the lack of impact a defensive tackle generally has outside of Aaron Donald. So Jeff Okudah has to be very good this year. I don't know how good. It's hard for me to quantify. PFF, probably top 20, and just, clearly on this upward trajectory, right? You see a lot of positive strides in where he's going. I think some of the scheme help with the split safeties is going to help him with some of the over-the-top stuff. He got badly burned in that Pittsburgh game early, 43 yards. Wasn't even close. What happened? Thought he identified something pre-play. Thought he was going to dive in for an interception. Never developed. Looked dumb. It happened, right? But it makes every Lions fan go, I saw that last year. I saw that last year a lot. And is this guy not fast enough to compete with downfield? Or was this a mistake where he, as the Lions put it, saw something with his eyes and tried to do something mental? It was a mental mistake, right? Not a physical one. He comes back in that game. He finishes pretty damn strong. He makes a really nice play in run support at the goal line, slams down on the edge, funnels the run inside, leads to a stop in the red zone, has the pass breakup on Juju Schuster-Smith in the end zone, where he played it just like you'd like a cornerback to play it, was in phase, was close to the receiver, and played his hands as you're taught to do technique-wise. I think that's growth in his game, because last year I felt like he lingered on his mistakes too much. You cannot do that at the cornerback position. There's a couple positions you can't do that, but the cornerback is near the top of the list. If you linger on your mistakes and you let your last mistake beat you on your next play because you're in your own head, And I think, Okudah, credit to him for being honest about it, like said, it's a problem for him. Like he takes mistakes personally. And Glenn and Pleasant have been hammering on him on that. Like, you cannot be this way. We need you to get your head right. We need you to mentally reset, get to the next play. He showed that growth in the Steelers game. Again, it's preseason. Ultimately, who gives a shit? Like, you don't want to overreact one way or the other, but it is a small step. Time will tell. We got week 1 coming. You got one of the best offensive minds in the game. They're going to be throwing probably 2 quarterbacks out there, and Deebo Samuel is one of the most fascinating wide receivers in the NFL. Ayuk is pretty damn good as well. Like, let's go week 1 and see where Okudah's grown. But I anticipate significant positive growth. Will Lions ever be satisfied? Will this be another Eric Ebron situation where you can never live up to the draft standing? You can never live up to the fact that the previous regime drafted you and that lingering disdain exists. I don't know. Maybe he will never overcome that. But can he become a good player in this league? I'm pretty confident that, yeah. I mean, Jeff Okudah is going to be a good player.
If Jeff Okudah...
He's not going to be T. Staber. Let's just...
okay. But if Jeff Okudah ends up like the objectively rated 22nd best corner in the league, as in like he's good enough to be the number 1 corner for somebody because there's more than that many teams in the league.
Sure.
To me, that's still
bad draft value.
That horrible draft value.
No question.
Because like the comparison for me was Quentin Nelson when the Colts took him. I think it was at 7.
Yep.
And it's a guard, and everyone's like, okay, like
better be the best in the league.
This guy better be dominant if you're going to do that. And if he is, great. I guess the best guard in the league. Yeah. So it's like, if you tell me, okay, Jeff Okudah ends up like being a B minus player, I'm not going to be like, oh, I take everything I said back. It'll all work out. You're out of your mind because I expect him to be Jalen Ramsey or they can all go to hell in Allen Park. And I heard you say this.
Well, they already the guys that drafted him already.
Okay, you know what? You're absolving them erroneously because that was an empowered regime that was 2 dead men walking the Green Mile that were empowered to make a decision that they had no right to make. Yep. And let's transition to this. So Sheila Ford Hamp, that's a perfect segue. I am told by everybody, Dave Burkett, Nick Baumgartner, I think you mentioned it once. Kyle Meinke said it last time when he was in here. Oh, you can't blame the sins of the father. You can't blame the sins of the mother. At some point, we're going to get to like the family pet owns this team. So we're on our 3rd attempt at Ford family ownership and getting this right.
Look at this graphic.
I am told
like this gritty, pixelated picture to make her look like she's a felon.
Okay, that's between you and Ben. But I just write the copy. But look, this is the person I'm supposed to buy into. We'll call it the Sheila Files. Sheila Ford Hamp's first moves as owner. I mean that this is everything.
She was an owner when this happened.
I knew you were going to say that, and I don't buy it, and here's why.
Okay.
You were at that press conference that like 4 people were invited to and nobody even knew about until after the fact, right?
Which isn't a press conference, but yes.
Okay, it makes it worse. Okay, you were invited junket. To okay, it was a joke. Yeah. Okay, we find out about this thing. It's like a meeting of the 5 families. So, Ben, can you throw that back up real quick? So
get that grizzly.
I knew you were going to say, because that's always the refrain. Oh, she wasn't the owner when that happened. Okay, the papers weren't filed with the league yet. She was the de facto owner. She was the one who said the most words at that meeting or that summit or whatever you want to call it. And even if your argument is, oh, she wasn't technically the owner on the Comerica Bank account, she was the one openly endorsing it. So it's like, I'm not going to absolve her from something she thought was a brilliant idea. So she endorsed the return. That's why I said endorsed. But she endorsed the return of Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia. And if you look back, and I mean, you wrote the story, but so you would obviously remember.
It's a long time ago.
If you look at the quotes, though, the quote is, this is a close paraphrase, was, I know the fans think that, we need to move on, but we're making the decision that's best for the Lions. So it's a nice, soft, bow tie way of telling the fans, look, you don't know what you're talking about. I know what's best. Womp womp. That was a major go to hell. She blew that, and that ties directly into number 2, which is why we transitioned from where you were on Okudah. She permitted, by default, Quinn and Patricia to draft a cornerback 3rd overall for the first time since '97, as we've discussed, which is just an egregious leap for this organization to make. And if you're going to make an exception that hasn't been seen since before Monica Lewinsky's dress got splooged on.
Is that your second Bill Clinton impeachment reference? Get some new material over there, Spiro.
Okay,
got Ben laughing over there.
Since before Reese Witherspoon met Ryan Felipe in Cruel Intentions on the set 2 years later.
What?
However you want. I was a 90s kid. You want me to keep going?
What?
The year Jerry Maguire came out. That was the Sean Springs draft. Okay,
Point 3.
Jerry Maguire came out a month after that draft. Do you want me to keep going?
No, I do not.
How deep do I have to go?
Keep going.
Okay, I think Semisonic Closing Time came out that year as well. Okay, the point is, listen, calm down. I can't get through. I can't fight with you. Fight with me after. Okay, this was allowed to happen. And if you're going to let somebody make a decision that hasn't been made in that long, you should at least empower someone that doesn't have the guillotine dangling over their head. Okay, if you're going to say, you know what, Bob, you know what, Matt, we're going to let you make this decision. You don't give that power to deviate from a normal, sane course of what the league has done for the last quarter century. You don't give that right of deviation to someone that's not there. Let's throw the graphic back up. So point 3, this is we're going to keep going, and you can't absolve her of this one because she was the owner for this shit. Hired a rookie GM and a head coach. No one even asked to interview. Nobody else asked to interview. That is TBD.
Well, the GM got interviewed, so that's not true.
Okay,
the Falcons interviewed him.
No. I'm saying the head coach. Maybe it's not worded in.
Really? Okay.
Maybe it's not in the AP style.
Just accept that you have a bad point.
Yeah, it was not meant to imply that Brad Holmes actually was coveted by other teams in the league.
Well, he interviewed. You don't have to go the opposite way with that.
No, Brad Holmes. I actually like Brad Holmes.
Okay.
But I'm just saying this is. I would not have. The point of this is that I would not have hired a rookie GM and a head coach. And by the way, they had said that their preference was not to do that. Of course, that didn't matter. But by the way, speaking of preferences that they said on the record that later meant nothing 5 minutes later, point 4, they allowed Calvin Johnson issue to linger, embarrassing the organization once again during the NFL Hall of Fame ceremony, where one of the greatest players at his position in NFL history, one of the 5 best players to ever wear their uniform, didn't even mention the fucks during his Hall of Fame acceptance speech, when just a couple months earlier, we're reading all the stories in your articles in the Free Press and the Athletic about Sheila Ford Hamp's different. Sheila Ford Hamp had a productive conversation with Calvin Johnson. Calvin Johnson is optimistic that a reconciliation is on the horizon. And I'm not blaming you guys. That's what you were told. So if you're going to lay out this beautiful bouquet of Sheila Ford Hamp is different and she's re-engaging the Calvin discussion a couple years after it had been seemingly abandoned. And then 2 months later, you let him get to the altar and he's given his speech and he's openly insulting you. He's going to fledgling sports networks in the city of Birmingham and openly saying, I wanted the hell out of there. How did she let this continue? So I don't want to get into the whole Ford family thing, but I'll keep it a one question topic.
Oh, there's a question.
Yeah, well, if you kept interrupting me, I would have gotten to it earlier.
Oh,
look, just tell me, because you've been around this new and improved third attempt at Ford family ownership for a while now. She's been in the saddle like a year and a half or something.
Last summer.
Right. Okay. Fine. About a year. You're there all the time. You're there constantly. The vibe in the building, all that stuff. Is she actually any different? I don't mean like what kind of books she likes to read or what they like to watch on Netflix. Like the organization, is it really different under her leadership? And if so, how? Because I don't see any difference. It looks like the same shit to me.
It's too early for me to say. I mean, it really is.
But your vibe, though, just the feel around the building.
So since she took over, has been a pandemic. There is no in the building, right? I don't know what the vibe is like in the building because I'm not allowed in the building. So what I'm allowed to see is her out at practice, and no, that's not a lot different. I was out there.
Do you like that she's in player personnel meetings? I think that's the optics that are so stupid. I know you like the knitting circle, but
I don't care. Like, the way. Listen, you could take it how you want. Like, both Campbell and Holmes have told me they invited her. Like they're trying to.
They said something nice about the boss.
Right. Yeah. That's how I see it. Right. Like they're trying to make the boss feel important because they gave them opportunities. Right. That Was Brad Holmes going to get a GM opportunity? I don't know. Probably not. Maybe not yet. Maybe soon. But this was the opportunity he was given. Dan Campbell, as you mentioned, this was his only interview. But they gave him the opportunity, and he's super grateful. So he's trying to keep the boss in the loop. It's not like she's giving her opinions on linebacker free agents. She's just listening. And I don't know. Like, I don't have a problem with the boss being a wallflower and wanting to know every aspect of her organization.
But just the Calvin thing, we don't have to get into the mechanics of the contract, but just in terms of Sheila's handling of it, isn't it the most aligned? Because we saw it with Barry Sanders.
No question.
This was an opportunity, and she said it publicly. She said it, that they had this productive conversation and things were moving towards reconciliation. All that. Like, this isn't speculation. Those stories were written. You wrote some of them. Like, this was an opportunity. You said it was needing to be fixed, and it was moving that way. Even Calvin said that.
I think that's where I wrote it, right?
Yeah.
Like, Calvin Johnson said it.
Yeah, but Sheila's quote was something about we want him back in the family. So, like, she's going on the record, agreeing that confirming this conversation took place, and that it was productive, and they want him back. And it's the same old shit. He's up there. He's bad-mouthing in the media. This was the easiest thing to fix, and they didn't. That is a bad sign to me that this is really any different. The burden of proof is on them. Why do I have to keep trusting this family?
So let's just point out, Calvin has absolutely dug his heels in. Give me my money back to the dollar with no extra work, or it's never going to happen. That's his take. Like, give me my money back. And so what we know, I didn't have this story. Dave Burkett had this story. They made an offer out to him. We will pay you this much money. You have to do 29 hours of work a year at events and appearing at games, like the most frivolous stuff. The same deal they gave Barry Sanders that got him back at in the family, and bridged the last little bit with a donation to his salary. What I had always hypothetically said for years is, Calvin doesn't need the money. He does. I mean, yeah, he took the money out of his pocket and he'd like it back, but why not forget the salary cap or whatever? Talk to Calvin, say, give us a charity. We'll donate $1.4 million in your name to this charity, or $1 million to this charity, and then $400,000 to your foundation to build things. Like, there's got to be ways. We can say, based on Burkett's reporting, there was an earnest, good faith effort to work within the confines of what the league allows from a, working with, like, those things had to be league approved. You can't just give former players money because it's technically skirting the salary cap. That's what that was about, was getting back some salary cap space. It was a horrendous decision made by, collaboratively in some way, shape, or form, Martha, Bob Quinn, and Rod Wood, who's the money guy, right? I don't know the full details. I don't want to pretend I do. But the way I perceive it is it being Rod Wood as a rookie president, a young president without full understanding or context of his job, making an ill-advised decision. And that's why Calvin continues to bash Rod Wood more than anybody else in that organization. He despises Rod Wood. And, I don't know how much power you want. Yeah, listen, Calvin Johnson is one of the all-time greats. You want him back in the family. How much power do you give the guy at some point? Like, if this was the offer that you offered to pay back all the money, and you just have to do the Barry Sanders, shake hands and slap backs with fans that still love and appreciate you. If that wasn't good enough for him, like, I don't know. Like, you can't have a former player dictating that you fire your president or something like that. Like, whether you like Rod Wood or not, like, you can't have Calvin Johnson say, dictating that much. I think she did make a good faith effort. I really do. I think the reporting Burkett made demonstrates that. It didn't work out. Yeah, it's embarrassing. It's a lingering embarrassment for the organization. But there's limitations on what you can do. At least she tried, because nobody else was trying before she took the reins.
Well, again, it was their wrong to right.
No question.
I think you do go above and beyond. I think Calvin, I haven't spoken to Calvin, But I think
get him in here.
Oh, I've tried. But Calvin's issue, I think, and just reading the tea leaves, is he doesn't want to be told, even if it's 2 appearances a year, that there has to be any like quid pro quo.
But that's what it's going to be now because
I
they
agree
reclaim
with
that
him.
money, because it's the salary cap, and that's the perceived tie-in, whether it is or not. That has to exist for the league to approve it. So
I'm
there
fine
has to
with
be
that, but you do it within the restrictions of the league. It's not like this has never happened before. Andrew Luck wasn't getting shaken down in the alley.
No.
Like the fact that this organization has the gall to be cutthroat. Like, what did they get for this cutthroat? Like Bill Belichick was trying to trade everybody, all like quoting Brady and Gronkowski. But at least, like, what's the trade? Okay, that guy's a real prick, but his hands are pretty heavy when he walks around. Like, this organization having the chutzpah, to use a Yiddish term, to act this way. It's like the one thing you can get right is doing right by, like, the 6 good players you've ever had. And they can't even get that right. Like, I'll give you, if you want to be cutthroat and you're hanging banners, no problem. I'm on board. Be an asshole. Be the biggest prick in the universe. I'll take the Patriots run. I don't care if the team I'm rooting for's players have fun or like the money manager of that front office. I couldn't care less if you're winning. But if you're going to stink, can I at least have like one of the few flares in the sky during this dark era, which has been my entire life of Lions football? Can I please have that little flare, have a nice 7-minute speech where he's not thumbing his nose at you? I'm not asking for much. You can't give me the cutthroat shit and be terrible. You got to pick one. Either be a lovable loser or be an asshole who wins. You can't give me the worst of both. And this is the 3rd person to try to get this right, and they can't. I don't know how many family members get a crack at this where Kyle Meinke's going to tell me, I know the last 5 Ford family members didn't work out, but you can't judge the 6th one. You can't judge the great niece based on the sins of the uncle and the cousin and the grandfather and the grandmother and the grand aunt. Like, at some point, it's never going to happen. They're a joke. I have no faith in her. The fact that he went up on that stage and did not thank them, which I agreed with him, I wouldn't have either. The fact that was allowed to happen months after she said she was going to fix it or implied that she would, I think is a disgrace, and it's an indictment on the entire organization. Again, here we are again. It's just terrible. It's unforgivable.
I don't think we're very far off in our viewpoints. I really don't.
Yeah.
I agree wholeheartedly. They should have never asked for the money back. It was a mistake. It's an embarrassment. Wholeheartedly agree. I just don't blame her for something as much that happened 5 years ago. Even if she was involved in the organization, I don't put her as a big part of that pie at that time. And I do credit her for trying. And I do think the effort was a good one. I think the fact that you matched the money and you found a deal that worked to match the money, quid pro quo, however you want to put it, like that had to exist. League standards had to exist. He doesn't like it. That's fine. That's just where it is. Maybe that's where I go back to my idea of you just donate money in his name to a charity, and that's the workaround. I don't know if that would make him happy. I don't know. I
don't think Calvin's standing out there. So now he may be stubborn. I don't think he's standing out there saying you will break the laws of the league and get a $25 million fine, or we're not cool. Like, he would have. He wanted you over a barrel, and I think he had a right to feel that way.
Yep.
But I just don't believe Calvin Johnson's position was you will break the CBA or we're done. I just don't buy that. Calvin's a smart guy. So we'll get off that. Let's get to our speed round. Now, this is going to be a little different because getting blasted.
Music.
Our first one, you have my blessing to go a little longer on. Speed round, typically we say 15, 30 seconds, whatever. This was big news that happened like right hours before the show. The article comes out on ESPN about Matthew Stafford. I wanted to ask you about Matthew Stafford's LA Rams peak, whether you think it's this year or next year or year 5, if there's a year 5 of Matthew Stafford. What's the best Matthew Stafford year with the Rams? Super Bowl? Like, where does this top out? Whenever it may be.
I've always said he's Super Bowl capable. He's not the guy that's going to throw you on his back and carry you. He's not Aaron Rodgers or Peyton Manning or Tom Brady, but he's in that B tier, right, or B plus tier, that if you surround him with all the right pieces, you can absolutely win a Super Bowl with Matthew Stafford. It's a pretty good defense, not as good as it was last year. Secondary took some hits in free agency. Apparently, Matthew Stafford's not allowed to have a running game because They just keep getting hurt. They're trying to trade for another one with Sony Michel. We'll see how that works, but there's a lot of good pieces there. I would be surprised if they don't at least get out of the first round of the playoffs. At least I think he's going to get that first elusive playoff win. I guess I haven't fully looked at all the rosters enough in the NFL, but I think NFC Championship is a very reasonable peak for Matthew Stafford. And listen, if he wins the Super Bowl, I'm not going to be shocked. I don't think it's likely. It's too hard to guarantee something like that.
Well, yeah,
but I think he's absolutely a guy capable of winning some big games, and he's shown throughout his career. I know that they're meaningless regular season games, but he performs fine in the clutch. He's got a history of performing in the fourth quarter. I think he can handle pressure and big lights in prime time, and if he's surrounded by better coaches and better players, there's room for success.
So he was big in the news today with that aforementioned ESPN article.
Big in the local news.
Oh, I had already submitted the prep sheet, and it's like, of course, something big happens right before I have the Lions beat right around. Everyone's going nuts at the Stafford thing. So, I mean, the paraphrase quote was essentially, he's interviewed for this big story for ESPN and about the, how he came to be an LA Ram. And his quote was effectively, I'm really excited to be playing in some big games and some big moments. Is that fair? I mean,
that's what he said. What does he want for the rest of his career? I want to be able to play in big games, big moments.
I'm tuning in on my drive home.
It's pretty innocuous to me.
It's innocuous. Like, I swear, I don't know if it's such a fresh story. I haven't run the gamut.
Yeah.
But I listened from the drive home from work today to that. It was like a 40-minute Valenti show because they had Tigers baseball this afternoon. But Valenti and Rico are like destroying the guy. The nerve of him to get up there after he won nothing here. And I'm like, okay.
Did they compare it to Bill Clinton's impeachment in any way?
Well, no, I have the trademark on it.
Okay, good.
But look. But okay, I disagree with the host. I like Valenti, talented guy, and whatever. People have their opinions, whatever.
Sure.
Surely this can't be a majority opinion, even in provincial Detroit. They had like 7 callers. It was 7 for 7. They all agreed with them. It's like people are outraged. And I have a little bit of a personal experience with this, and this is going to make me a Bill Simmons level, like, name-dropping whore. But, and it's nowhere near the same profile, but one of my best friends is a pro hockey player and went from the Columbus Blue Jackets to the Pittsburgh Penguins, and made national news. Was on the ESPN.com homepage for this when he went to the Pittsburgh Penguins, who had won 3 cups in the past 10 years, including 2 of the last 3 right before he got there. He gave a quote, and he was coming from Columbus, who had never won a playoff series. He gave a quote. They're asking him, hey, how excited are you to be in Pittsburgh? And his quote was, I've been really excited about this, joining a winning culture like Pittsburgh and all the cups here, and I couldn't be more pumped. That was taken as him like this huge slight to Columbus of, oh, you're excited to finally be with a real team. And I talked to him after. It was national news. John Tortorella, his former coach, is saying this is bullshit for him to disrespect us like this. He's getting called out by his old GM. And I talked to him the day the story breaks, and he's like, dude, I really wasn't even thinking about Columbus. They asked me if I'm excited to be in Pittsburgh. It's like, fuck yeah, they won 2 of the last 3 cups. Like, I can't wait to be here. He really didn't think that. My take on this Stafford thing is I don't think he was sitting there thinking, even though he had every right to think that, I don't think he was sitting there thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to get in a good dig on the Lions. The guy hasn't had an interesting opinion about anything in his life. Now he's suddenly going to be throwing bombs in the media at his former employer. Like that, they had a very cordial, nice, friendly exit by all accounts. Don't you think this was much ado about nothing and we're being typical provincial Detroiters at this point?
It's the worst speed round of all time.
I said this one's going to be longer.
All time. Quickly, Calvin Johnson, comparing his exit to Matthew Stafford's, is that not growth? Can we not acknowledge that the Lions handled that better under Sheila?
Yeah.
Is that not acknowledgement that maybe the organization kind of realizes that they've sucked with handling the exit of great players and not putting Stafford in he's a tier below Barry and Calvin, obviously, with where he lands in league history, but what he's meant to this organization, this was them handling it better, right? So I read the article this morning. I was doing some other things and distracted and kind of bouncing back and forth between it, but I think the quick quote was in regards to the question of what do you want for the rest of your career? So the rest of his career, he wants to play in big games. Yeah, obviously. And look at He didn't play in a whole lot of big games during his time here. Didn't play in a whole lot of primetime games while he was here. Is he part of the problem during the time he was here? Sure. Was he all the problem or most of the problem? Probably not. Like, I don't know. I read this article and I just didn't think much of it. I think Seth is a fantastic writer. His New England cover band line was brilliant in comparing the last couple of years here. It was a very nice, in my opinion, thorough recap of what happened with Matthew Stafford from basically the time he asked out to going to Cabo and conveniently running into Rams players and Sean McVay to where he is now. What I really was struck with the interview is how little Stafford said. Like, Seth was with him for 3 hours at this autograph signing, and like Stafford's just shutting down every question. I'm thinking, yeah, that's what it's like covering Matthew Stafford. Like, it's exhausting because he says nothing, because he's been groomed to say nothing since he was in 7th grade and Mel Kiper's projected number 1 pick 10 years down the line. Like, I didn't learn anything from that article. I really didn't. And that's not a criticism. It was written for a national audience. It wasn't written for Lions fans or Rams fans. It was introduction of new LA coastal superstar Matthew Stafford to the world, to ESPN's broad stage of casual NFL fan. So I don't know. I know how talk radio works. Like, you've got to have a strong opinion to generate emotion. Otherwise, you suck as a radio host. And Valeni does it great. He does it great. But I mean,
I don't think that was contrived, though. I mean, Valeni will flat out say, "Look, I don't give a shit about this. You want me to yell about this Michigan State loss? I don't care." So you're not wrong. Like, I think I didn't get the sense that was a contrived hot take thing. But even
I just didn't take anything from the quote. The quote
Neither
didn't. As a guy that covered that guy since 2011 at least, and even probably a little bit before that, here and there dabbling in, like, I shrugged my shoulders. Like, I just feel like Lions fans are so sensitive to criticism. I don't know why. Like, your organization merits it, but like, they hate the fact the national media doesn't cover them or gives them just like what blew up this summer. It was the snippet of the kneecaps, and that was it. And that's every time I do a stupid radio interview at any city, like, it's opens with a kneecaps joke, like, because that's all they got. That's all they know about the Lions. Like, but the national media doesn't care about you for a reason. It's because your team sucks. You have no compelling players. I mean, yes, you used to have Calvin Johnson. That was fun, and you were relevant when you had Barry Sanders. But like, nobody cares about a 3-13 team going for the number 3 draft pick. You're relevant on Thanksgiving only, and probably more people are angry about that than happy about that nationally.
They'll give you love when it's warranted. I mean, Barry Sanders and Calvin Johnson have both been Madden cover boys and were darlings of the league.
Sure.
So, I mean, yeah, whatever. The Lions fans being defensive is just hilarious. We'll move on. So this is sort of a more positive thing, I guess. I mean, I suppose you could be unpleasantly surprised. But your biggest surprise of preseason, just whether it's training camp or talking to guys or what you've seen in the 2 preseason games, for better or for worse, is there anything that you've said like, wow, I didn't think that. I'm surprised to see that.
I'll give you one on both sides of the ball.
Sure.
I think the defensive line is going to be better than people expected. And that was a big part of the problem under Patricia. No pass rush pressure, right? And no pass rush pressure leads to a collapse to everything else in the defense, right? No pressure means time to throw. It's just everything starts in the trenches. The pass rushes looked decent, and even maybe even above average during camp. I like the moves they made at defensive tackle. I think Aleem McNeil is going to be a player here. Onwuzurike finally kind of got back in the flow practice. And the first day he was out there, like, I compared him to a dog that hadn't eaten for 3 days and you tossed him a porterhouse. Like, the guy was just everywhere, wrecking everything, and it was fun to watch. And yeah, you're seeing some of the blitzing stuff. They're blitzing safeties, blitzing corners, blitzing linebackers. Derek Barnes is obviously really shined here in these preseason games. So I said earlier, I thought the offense was going to be junk. I think the defense has a chance to go from worst in franchise history, so not a lot of places to go but up, but like I could see them as a middle of the pack defensive unit without making too many major personnel upgrades. So that's just largely scheme and attitude, right? I've been pleasantly surprised with what I've seen defensively from them in practice. Offensively, I was not on the Amon-Ra St. Brown train. I just thought they got to a point where, like, we got to get some receiver to shut these people up. And they drafted one. And there are things I really liked about Amon-Ra St. Brown. I liked feisty receivers. I like guys that have edge and attitude. Blocking is fantastic. Not that people care about it, but I mean, just the way he approaches blocking says some of his character. But like, I watched his game film at USA and I said, I don't see it. Like, there was another guy, and I'm not a great college. I don't know a lot of the names, but there was another receiver on the USC team that's going to be coming out, I think, this year. That was clearly their number one option. Like, Amon-Ra was the second guy on that roster, and outside of one really good corner where he caught four touchdown passes in the first quarter, like, the rest of the film is kind of blah. And so, watching him in early stage of training camp, I'm like, yeah, this is the guy I saw. But in the last 2-3 weeks, like, I just saw this guy trending up quickly. And so I would say St. Brown has been a pleasant surprise. I think he's going to be starting slot receiver. I compare his game to late career Anquan Boldin. And
still very good.
And like, so right, like, he's lost a step. He's not a 1,000-yard guy anymore, but he might be 60 catches, 700 yards, knows how to use his frame and his power well to his advantage in the slot, a threat in the red zone. Like, that's what I see from Amon-Ra. Like, he's never going to be a dominant receiver, but he could be a really savvy guy that does everything the right way and puts up some numbers as a complementary piece in your offense. And I can see that. And that's good value for a fourth rounder.
Oh, incredible. If you get late stage Anquan Boldin, like Detroit Lions 1 year.
Yeah. I think he caught 8 touchdowns his year here, right?
He had offers. Yeah. Well, I heard the Lions wanted him back, but I know he had multiple offers to continue his career.
I think he went to Buffalo and just didn't work. I don't know.
I thought Detroit was his last stop. Either way. So we were actually going to get to Amon-Ra St. Brown later, but we'll skip him when we get to it.
That's the super speed round.
Yeah, the super duper speed round, actually. Yeah. But so we'll stay with this one though. Penei Sewell, 7th overall pick. I gave it a B plus. Like, I was totally cool with it. The talent outsized the pick slot probably. Like, what's your take on Penei Sewell? Do you like him? How's he look to you?
Man, people are for years, and this when you talk about the draft, like, it's always going to be Sewell and Fields. Like, that's the conversation. And the fact that Fields landed in the division, like, you're going to be talking about it a lot more. And Fields has had some exciting moments in the preseason, so of course he's up there. Sewell's a baby. He's 20 years old. Like, it blows my mind that this dude can't order a beer sometimes, right? Because he's just such a big guy. He's got the right demeanor for an offensive lineman. I think we're going to see a lot of lumps in this rookie year. More than I think people want to see. Going back to maybe Okudah, right? Like, I don't think he's going to be 112 out of 115 offensive tackles or whatever, but you see some of the growing pains and lumps he's going to take in these first couple preseason games, right? Gets beat for a sack in the first game where another rookie defensive lineman just gets a hand into his chest, and it's the worst thing. You can't let a defensive lineman get that hand in there because once he does, it's over. It's control. Sees Melvin Ingram in week 2, and that's a speed rusher, a veteran, a savvy guy, and I think it's a nice comparison because Taylor Decker went against the Steelers in his first preseason.
Harrison got him.
James Harrison.
Yeah.
First quarter, strip sack. I mean, just embarrassed him with speed on the edge. And that was 35-year-old James Harrison. Like, probably well past his prime. Not done. Played 3 more years or whatever, but it was a wake-up call. Now, the difference was Decker was sticking at left tackle, which he played in college. So he was moving to right tackle. He's learning to write with his left hand as a right-handed individual. It's different. There's growing pains. I see positive progress. I think Penei Sewell is going to be a very good player in this league, but it might not be there in week 1. I think he's going to cause some frustration. Probably going to be, we're going to have this podcast next year, and is Penei Sewell a bust? Let's pump the brakes. But, this rookie year might not go as smoothly or as dominant as people hope from that position, and that really, once you got one weak link, kind of brings down the whole perception of the line itself.
Yeah, I mean, Taylor Decker had some bad tape that rookie year, and it's turned out to be pretty good. I mean, you mentioned him, so
had his best year. I mean,
very good.
I would think he was a top 10 tackle in the NFL, probably bottom of that top 10, but top 10 tackle in the NFL last year.
And they got middle of the first round. I mean, you'll take that all day. It was like
great
16th pick or whatever it was.
Yep.
So we'll move on. We're gonna skip. I don't know, Ben. I'm sure will throw up the Amon-Ra St. Brown graphic, but we'll skip them.
Oh no!
So
throw up the graphic, Ben. Just let the people see it.
It's up to Ben. Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks like that ball's about to hit him.
NFL's Ricky Davis.
Yeah.
Like, is he going to throw up a board for himself to get that triple double?
Yeah. See,
that's my only Ricky Davis memory.
It was his Cleveland Cavalier days. I was going to frame it like, is this guy actually good, or is this just a function of like when Ricky Davis would score 20 a game for the Cavaliers, but they were coached by Paul Silas and they won 12 games a year? It's like, I get it. Like, he's showing a lot of stuff, but this team has the worst receiver room like in the history of the league.
No doubt.
I was going to frame it like, is this guy actually good? Could this guy go be a good third receiver for somebody else? Or is he just looking good because they got nothing and somebody's got to catch the ball?
I think you'll like him. Like I said, I think he's a chain mover that runs pretty clean routes. He's not peak physically gifted, over other guys. Obviously, he's so much more physically gifted than you or I, right? But like, it's always weird talking about relative athleticism. Yeah. But like, comparatively to other receivers, like he's probably average in a lot of ways, other than kind of that just grittiness, that willingness to go out there and be physical and block. And like I said, the route running's pretty damn good for a rookie.
Yeah, unless you're looking to be a number one receiver, that whole athleticism thing at that position is actually kind of overrated. There's a lot of like stumpy, relatively speaking, again, good wide receivers in the NFL. The Patriots have had like 100 of them, but anyway.
I think you'll see St. Brown show up a lot on third down. I think that's going to be like kind of you got a 3rd and 6, like he's going to be, along with Hawkinson, like the guys that help keeps drives sustained.
And that was Bolden in Detroit. Bolden was like the ultimate 3rd and 6, like just, a little curl route. He was money. All right, so we'll move on. Make one change at Ford Field. You can do anything. Now, I know you don't have the fan perspective. You're, in Timbuktu in the press box. But it can be how the press box is. If you've walked the concourse, I wish they served elephant ears, whatever, anything. What would be your one change? Because you go to all these stadiums. You've seen what's out there. What's something that they're not doing that they should?
So, I want better press box food, but that's not relevant to any fan whatsoever. Bottom five NFL.
Yeah, and we talked about that last time. That was actually a speed on last time. I said,
look at me, like food? I like food. It's clear. I'm working on it. But the two nicest new stadiums, I love Minnesota Stadium. I tell people this all the time. Like, if you want to go to one Lions road game, like, I'm not advocating going to Minneapolis in December because it kind of sucks, but like, if you can catch a game in September or October there, early October, like, that stadium is incredible. And so what I really like about it is they don't have, like, if I'm honestly answering, like, you rip the roof off. I hate indoor stadiums. Like, I want natural. I understand the weather's cold here, but not colder than Green Bay, like, rip the roof off. Like, but that's a very difficult thing to go back and re-weather-proof a stadium or whatever. But the roof in Minnesota is like half, I don't know if it's glass or what, but it creates this immense amount of natural light that comes out that almost makes you feel like you're outdoors. And it just, I don't know, I really, really like that. The other thing about Minnesota is the press box is in the mid-level. So you're in it, right? So they're doing their skull thing, which just looks cool. Like, it's just an impressive looking thing when 60, 70,000, however many people there are doing it. It's loud, it's enthusiastic, like, and you're kind of in the heart of it, right? Because the press box is open air. I love covering games in Minnesota. And so I would find a way to bring in more of that natural light. If it's not ripping the roof off, find a way to redo the roof that you're bringing in that sunlight some way, shape, or form. It's a crazy, stupid, expense that nobody needs, but that's what I would change.
I hate Minnesota Stadium, but
really,
yeah,
just on the inside, even.
Oh no, the structure is a beautiful stadium.
Like, the outside is
Michigan State lost in the Final Four.
Oh, that's a dumb reason. Stop being emotional.
I've only been there once, and they broke my heart. Cassius Winston had his heart broken. His knee was hurting. Yeah, it was a rough time. So, yeah, it's the worst stadium I've ever been in.
I also saw them lose at Ford Field, so I guess they should tear that one down too.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's different because I was expecting to get buzzsawed by that North
They
Carolina team.
did get buzzsawed.
I was fully expecting that. I was expecting us to beat Texas Tech in a tight one. But, yeah, worst stadium ever. They should condemn it and rebuild it. Okay. We'll move on. Got two left.
All those dead birds.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. So we'll move. We got second to the last one.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you. We talked about a few of these guys. The Kamala Harris of Detroit's coaching staff. So you got
I don't follow politics. Can you give me some personality traits that I'm looking for?
Do you know that Kamala Harris is the vice president?
I do.
That's all you have to know.
I saw her in the debates. I've seen her do a couple congressional hearings, but I don't know what's going on with her now.
You don't have to know any of that stuff.
Okay.
I'm framing the question.
Okay.
Dan Campbell is the president. He's Joe Biden.
Okay.
He's the head coach.
Who's the vice president?
Who is like the? I mean, is it Anthony Lynn because he's got the experience? Like, who is sort of like the number two, Dan Campbell's right hand man, or the guy that sort of commands the most presence other than Dan Campbell? Who is it, if there is one?
Yeah, no, and I would. My initial reaction was to go Aaron Glenn, but the real answer is Deuce Staley.
Really,
Deuce Staley,
so not a coordinator.
Yeah, so he was brought in as the assistant head coach, and Dan Campbell is grooming him in the same way Sean Payton helped him by giving him extra head coach-like duties in the Saints building. He's trying to pay it forward with Deuce, and Deuce felt like he had to get out of Philadelphia, where he was beloved even by the owner there. He had to get out and get a different element on his resume to get that next opportunity. That was what he needed, as a new line on the resume, right? And so Campbell sold him on the idea that I'm going to give you, I'm going to delegate things to you. I'm going to let you maybe run practice segments. I'm going to give you, not running backs, but I'm going to give you linebackers to scout in the draft, to give opinions in meetings. I'm going to have you run team meetings. So yeah, that's very vice presidential, right? Like, you're trying to get that person ready to run. But not only that, like, when I think of Harris, again, I go back to my biggest memories of her is like seeing her in congressional hearings, and she's like HBIC, like she's hard questions and running that shit, like former prosecutor, and like Deuce is hard ass, like he can be, like he, guys like to play for him. He brings good energy, but like if he needs to bust some balls, like Deuce Staley has no problem doing that.
But he's the it's sort of against the term technically, but the second alpha.
Yeah, and like I said, Glenn very much has that, and I genuinely believe that, again, if the defense is successful, and as I kind of hinted that I think they might be surprise some people this year, like Glenn is going to be a very hot coordinator. And I look at it like Terrell Austin, right? Like Terrell Austin was a hot coordinator that deserved a head coaching job, but the difference between Glenn and Austin is the personality. It's the way they command the room. It's the charisma. I loved covering Terrell Austin. Like, he was fantastic, but he was also kind of too easygoing in some ways. And Aaron Glenn's not easygoing. Like, he's very serious, very focused, very smart. 15 years in the league. You don't play 15 years in the league without being smart. The stuff that he did, the guys he developed in that secondary, when he took over the secondary in New Orleans, they were god-awful. One of the worst in the league in terms of passer rating allowed. And he developed some studs over there. Yeah, he was given some good draft assets, but he made it work. He worked with personalities, which is another thing. You got to be able to manage egos. Aaron Glenn has it. Whatever it is, he has it. So I think, he's very much destined for bigger things in this league.
If they graduate to a middle-of-the-pack defense, I might say, hey, Dan, I appreciate it. Good job with that D coordinator hire. Go grab a Mai Tai. You got 5 years left on your deal. Go have fun. Aaron's sliding over. Because, everything I've heard about Aaron Glenn is in line with what you're saying. Yeah. It would be a miracle through no fault of his own if they graduate to that level. I mean, if they're like the 25th best defense in the league, I'd be like, all right, that's real progress.
Some more turnovers, yeah. I mean, it was so bad last year. Like, it was inconceivably bad.
the fact they didn't blitz at all, despite getting no pressure, so it's just beyond me. This is this genius. But he was responsible for the greatest defensive play in Super Bowl history, so he's beyond reproach. We'll finish here. A little fun one for you. Best bourbon you've ever had? Like you're going to your death row final meal here. Which one you taking?
So I only started with bourbon like 5 years ago, maybe, which is interesting. Like I think my perception of bourbon was Jack Daniels and the like, right? And it's all disgusting. Like the basic, it's like comparing Budweiser to a good beer. Like, and I'm sorry for fans of Budweiser. Like, I understand. Like, I'll drink a cold one on a hot day and enjoy it as much as the next guy. But like, I'm not going out to buy a 24 pack of Budweiser. It just doesn't work for me. I'd rather have a nice quality beer that I can enjoy and just. So bourbon, I started learning more about bourbon through other people, and I don't know if it was the best I had, but I think this is the story that's most appropriate. I was on a road trip for work. I'm not gonna say where I work because I don't want this to come back on me. I don't know. Maybe it was Detroit News. Maybe it wasn't. Who knows? But road trip for work and stop at a restaurant for dinner and got a $50 stipend or whatever. And I said, hey, do you have any nice bourbons back there? And they're like, oh yeah, we do have a nice selection. Would you like to send the bartender over? I'm like, okay. So the guy comes over, he describes 3 bourbons that they have and doesn't say anything about the price. He just describes all this process. And it's all over my head. I don't know what he's talking about. So I said, well, which one do you like best? He tells me it's a Weller, and it's an annual release. I don't even know what he says. Like, you can't get a bottle. If you find a bottle in secondary market, it's like $800, $900. I'm like, okay, well, what do you guys charge for a pour? He says $30 or $35 for 2 ounces. I was like, that's not bad. Like, my dinner was $20. Like, I'm not filing the full receipt. Here's $55. Like, this is what I paid for my dinner. So I got the $35 bourbon. He brings it over, and I don't really know what to expect. I've had some decent bourbons, but I took a sip of this, and it was like the first time you have booze, right? Like, my face went flush. Like it just hit me like a ton of bricks. And like, I would say the quality of like good bourbons, what I've found over years is I like cast strength, right? Like, I like the pure uncut stuff, the high APV that almost has like that burn. Like the really high quality stuff, it's almost syrupy, right? Like it coats the mouth and kind of lingers. That flavor lingers. And this flavor just like one sip just lingered for like 5 minutes. And it was just like, I was like, shit. Like I've ruined bourbon forever. Like, I'm never going to find something this good. And I mean, I've had the George T. Staggs of the world, and they're excellent. And, every once in a while I'll be in a mood to spend $25 for one drink and enjoy it. But like that Weller, that annual release Weller was just an experience. Like, that was what made it so great.
I'm gonna have to get it on the shelf. I've never tried it, but I'd love to try it.
I know Weller's got a bunch of different variants, and
it's their annual release. So if I Google Weller annual release,
I think
I'm
so.
find
I mean, you'd find the one that's the hardest. I know they have Antique, which is good. All the Wellers are pretty tough to find. They're not. A lot of them are not particularly expensive. If you get like, whatever state minimums, some of them are $35, $40. I think this one is like only like 80 or 120, but it's just so hard to find. You almost got to go through like, trading.
The $800 hour. We'll see if Ben's willing to take a
We'll see if we
pay
can
cut
find
so
it
we
after
can
the
drink
store.
that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look out right
We'll give
after.
him a shot. If it help you.
Yeah.
Not even a pay cut.
I
Then.
pay him in booze all the time.
Nice.
Yeah, this is like the first night he hasn't had a drink next to him. Normally he drinks with me. I feel very.
Are you sure the door's closed? He might be drinking back there.
He said he wasn't tonight. I don't know. Maybe he's sneaking.
Way to throw me under the bus.
Well, I felt bad. Thank God,
Just
Justin.
a disembodied voice.
I shared our sort of general overview with Justin, and thank God he wouldn't run in for the bar because I'm sitting here drinking alone like a boozy alcoholic. But anyway, so man, it was awesome to have you. I know it's a hot time for you. This isn't like pulling you in the middle of your off season. This is hot for you, like other than the draft, maybe like right up there, right?
Literally hot today, by the way. Like the last 2 days, I sweated buckets. Like it was disgusting out there.
Well, that too, but it's
like 100
hot
and
time
something.
Yes, literally, but
it's definitely a busy time of the year. Training camp is a grind. I mean, it's a grind for the players and coaches. I don't, their grind is different than my grind, but it's a pretty daily, demanding thing, 6-7 days a week, and it's just what it is. It's part of the job, and for as much as we talked about Campbell, we didn't really get into the media aspect of it, right? It's been a pleasure to cover him. Like, it's just different, right? So when you ask this guy a question, you ask Jim Schwartz a question, what do you get? You get a response back that, well, your question's faulty premise, and I'm smarter than you, and you're dumb, and here's why. You could ask Jim Schwartz why the sky is blue, and he'd tell you the sky's not blue, it's the absence of other colors. Like, it's just, that's who he was. And then you ask Jim Caldwell a question, and Jim Caldwell, hyper-professional, but, cliche-driven, never said anything controversial, kept it by the book, checked the report, things of that nature. Like, he was just, he was what he was. And Matt Patricia, he wasn't Belichick. Belichick gives you that short 2-word answer, but Patricia would talk in a circle and say a ton of words, and then you'd read it back if you transcribed it, and he said nothing. And you're like, well, now I can't even use it because it's like just rambling and it's nothing. I asked Dan Campbell a question, and I get an answer. And it's often colorful. Sometimes it comes with a story that's kind of funny. But, like, we keep asking about injured players, and he keeps answering. And it just, I feel like I'm staring at him slackjaw when he drops back. Oh, he's got a grade 1 hamstring strain. He's going to be out for 2.5 weeks. And it's like...
Yeah, the guy's giving the coordinates of the injury. Like, if you're looking to target to aggravate it.
It's mind-blowing how honest he is. And I don't know if it's going to last, if it's going to, he's going to dial back once the regular season starts. But, like, it's just refreshing to have question and answer period like adults, right? Like, football, I say this all the time, football's not that important. It's a game. I know it's $1 billion industry, and it's the toughest place in the world to keep a job more than 3 years, but, like, it's not military secrets. It's not, the Ark of the Covenant. Like, let's chill and relax, and I've enjoyed the press conferences because I know when I go in and I think of a thoughtful question, Dan's going to answer me, and he's going to be pretty straight. And I appreciate that. Like, it just makes I don't hate going to work every day. And there have been points on this job where I hate saying that because I know people have worse jobs than me. I'm covering football for a living, but there have been times where I've gone into work and I just hate being there because it's the same stupid bullshit every day of question cliche, and you're just trying so hard to manufacture something. And I don't feel that right now. Like, this it's been the most stress-free training camp I've ever had.
I haven't watched or listened to Lions coach press conferences, not including introductory press conferences, since Steve Mariucci left. And not that Mariucci was the most gregarious, but he gave you something. Like, they've all been bad. I laugh at, like, Corey Woods from Woodward Sports, who's been a guest here. Just got promoted to the beat writer position for Woodward. And it's like, this is the first coach you get? Like, I mean, the guy doesn't realize how lucky he is.
Well, I've said it for years. Like, I would love to cover a Rex Ryan. Like, that's just in my head. Like, Rex Ryan is like that guy that you just never know what he's going to say. He's going to criticize a player openly for a mistake, and he's just not going to be afraid of that. And, like, that's what I'm getting in Campbell, right? Like, I feel like he's honest about player injuries. He's honest about which players need to improve, which players have made good plays, what he's seen. Like, yeah, he's generally positive and trying to carry these guys across the finish line, like the way I described him earlier. He's an uplifting person in general, but he's not just constantly blowing smoke up their ass. There is stuff to read into what he says, but there's also direct comments that he says. And I don't think I've left a press conference this year and said, I got nothing out of that. I left most press conferences dating back to Caldwell, all through Patricia, where I left it and go, the whole thing is worthless.
When they are 2-15 this year, I will be, to get Mr. Candor, Dan Campbell, on the record. I'm going to be feeding you a question about my guy Sam Howell down there in Chapel Hill. Because that's my guy.
That's where you've already settled?
Oh, it's settled. That's where I dream.
You're not going to give this Liberty kid some time, see what he's about?
No, it
could be like Trey Lance 2.0.
I wish him well. He might be very good.
Okay.
It's Sam Howell. I'm Sam Howell trained me.
I feel like of the people I've surveyed, Rattler is the more popular answer.
Yeah, but to look at that face for like 7 years, that might be rough.
All right, I'm not engaging in that.
Look,
I'm not gonna.
I'm sorry.
Is it punchable? I don't even know what he looks like.
Isn't he a last chance you kid?
Honestly, I don't know the answer to that. He's a hell of a player. It's not that he's got a punchable face. Like, I honestly wouldn't want to touch him. I feel like, whatever.
This is
keep it professional.
I feel like we already are past that.
Well, we're way past that. But he's a weird looking guy.
Oh,
I just don't want to.
Guess I'm gonna have to look him up tonight.
I just don't want to look at that face for like 7 to 10 years.
Good Lord.
But anyway, so you're a top 5 guy in town. I've said it again and again. Your peak of, other than draft time, peak of your hot point, and with your job and things going crazy. I wish you well this year. I'm not going to bug you for like at least 6 months because you have to make your like biannual appearance, and then I leave you alone. I back off. But I do appreciate you coming. I know there's a lot going on. You do an awesome job. I'm a big fan of yours. Last thing before we go, are you a wine drinker too? I know you're a bourbon drinker.
I drink some wine.
Do you want our delicious Smuggler Sun bottle here?
So it's red?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in on red wine.
That's our sponsor. Everyone check them out. Again, virgilsvineyard.com.
I was wondering why we hadn't cracked it open during the show.
Well, you're going to take it with you. I don't know if your wife drinks red, but
she does.
Awesome. Trust me, man. You'll become.
I mean, she's like, listen, she's a white woman over 30. Like, we all drink red wine, right?
Exactly. Yeah. My wife's in the same boat. So, but I'm telling you, you're going to come back in like 10 years. You're going to be like, hey, that sponsor's legit, man.
Okay.
I'll go.
You said this was your favorite.
That's my favorite. It's my favorite. It's my favorite wine under $200, and it's not like I'm having a ton of over $200 wines, but like anniversary type.
Do we get to say the price point on?
It's I think it retails now at like 46.
Okay, that's like the peak I'm spending. So
it seriously tastes like $100+ bottle. It's like the best buy in town. They're awesome and really good. I mean, it's they're from here. The wineries out.
They're from here. It says California. What's going on?
Let me finish.
No.
The wineries in Napa Valley. Okay. They have a residence there at the winery, but they have a loft in downtown Detroit.
Can I tell another story?
You can. I mean,
we're just going to keep going.
So much of your time, but
let me just say. Well, it's not even a story. Let me just tell you one of my favorite moments covering this Lions team is the Raiders training camp in Napa Valley. I don't know what I got blessed with covering a week, or not a week, but like 4 days in Napa Valley, right? So like whatever, it's work. But the Raiders practice at like a high school, and their fans are like so tight in there. It's like Cameron Indoor Stadium out with Raiders fans, which are the worst, and like they're getting into verbal banter with the Lions fans the Lions players that's occasionally dipping toward unsavory. But what an awesome experience, because it was like the Wild West out there. Like Lions PR via the Patriot Way was so controlling and restricting of everything we did, where we walk on the field, where we stand. I felt like I could go watch at the 30-yard line if they were at the 40 and they wouldn't have cared. Like, it was just such a fun, great experience to cover the team in a loose, casual environment. And then like there's the day off. What do? Go play golf on a vineyard with Tim 20-man of the Lions, who's a great golfer. Just what a great experience playing where they're growing grapes throughout the holes, and you're just playing.
California's the best.
And then Chris Burke and I, athletic, go do some wine tasting. I don't know.
You know Chris Burke?
Yeah.
Oh,
is he also ignoring you?
We'll have to talk.
You know why? Because he's in Ann Arbor. He's not coming out here.
Okay, but just say that. I mean, the fact that I have to get on my knees and beg Chris Burke, it really bothers me.
So we went wine tasting.
Is he a nice guy? Or
he's the best.
So what did I do to him?
I mean,
seriously. Most people always say no. I mean, you would say no.
Dude, Chris Burke and I do all kinds of weird stuff on the road. We went to like a drive-through safari on the way to Cleveland. Why? Because it was on the billboard and it looked like fun, and it was. But we did wine sampling in Napa Valley. Played 2 rounds of golf. I would love to go back.
Who else knows Chris Burke? I got to find someone other than you to vouch for me, because I don't trust your reference.
Nick Baumgartner.
Nick doesn't hate me. I'll tell Nick to talk. I mean, they're colleagues, so yeah.
Chris is the nicest guy on the beat.
He is?
He's the nicest guy on the beat.
He's the least responsive.
Well,
objectively, I've had everyone else in here.
You're generally pretty off-putting, so that makes sense.
I get it, but not to the point that it didn't eventually get you all in the chair. He's the only one. He's like the one that got away.
Yeah, I think it'd probably take him. It'd take him close to 100 minutes to get out here. He's on like Celine.
All right,
And he's got kids.
There's precedent for that.
He's the one.
There's precedent for. Well, just say that. These people that don't respond to emails, like
I'm apparently his business manager now, and I'm saying it for him.
when people like, I love when a journalist no comment something. Just the irony of that always cracks me
It is
up.
pretty funny.
It's just like, come on, like don't no comment me. But anyway, appreciate you being here. We'll talk some juice after this if you don't have to run right out the door. I got a quick question for you. That's going to be a torture to the audience still with us, but I'm excited to have you back in 6 to 100 months. You're always welcome. Thank you quickly to Ben Okudah, the great and powerful Oz on the other side of the curtain. Thank you to Eric Williamson. He's probably asleep by now. Normally I would say he's on his couch in his boxers watching the show. I'm sure he's asleep, but thank you to Eric, our graphic and set designer. Thank you to our sponsor, Virgil's Vineyard, the Smuggler's Son. Check him out. My man Justin Rogers walking out of here with a bottle. We appreciate you. We will be back. We have a couple interesting ones in the next 10 days. We are bringing Becca Polanski in to talk about convicts and people hacking up their wives and psychology of that. So that's a bit of a deviation from the sports.
Is this like a true crime podcast now?
Well, we mix
I
it
might
in.
actually listen to
This
you
is a
when
good
I'm
friend.
not on it.
This is a good friend of mine who is a clinical psychologist whose job is to work in the prison system and like try to. She does both. She assesses them, and also like tries to rehabilitate them. I can't. We already had.
Sounds like a good show.
It's gonna be awesome. We had to cancel it because her employer found out about it and kiboshed it. But she's actually leaving that job for a different prison system. So I'm getting her right between the two jobs. Yeah.
Smart.
So we got it back. So that one's coming. We have Anthony Ianni coming on any day now. We're working on that. Michigan State basketball player. Great book of his just came out about being I think he was the first like openly autistic basketball player who like talked about his experiences in playing college basketball on the spectrum. I actually just got his book yesterday. I'm 2 chapters in. It's awesome. Couple others in the works. We'll be with you. Thank you again, Justin Rogers, Smuggler's Son, Ben Okudah, Eric Williamson. Thank you to Comcast for being our internet provider. We love you guys. Thank you. We'll be back later this week, probably. Spiro Avenue Show, Justin Spiro. Thank you.